Okay, we got a full house here tonight. Thank you everyone for coming. Welcome to this special work session for Grand Haven City Council for August 18th, 2025. Just call the roll, please.
Fritz,
Here.
Lowe, McLaughlin,
Here.
Manetza.
Here. So this evening's work session is a presentation by the Sustainability and Energy Commission for Forest Management Update. And I apologize that when we posted the agenda, the background information didn't get included, so you weren't able to review that ahead of time. But we'll see a presentation by Gene Madden, supported by Nick Calais.
Good job.
All right, I got his name right. And then other questions. I would like to caution the audience, because I know there's a lot of you who are very interested in this topic, would like to speak up to it. The work session is a presentation. When we do a work session and a special meeting of any kind, we do exactly what's on the agenda. So if you want to address council on this item, stick around for the regular meeting, and during the call to the audience will be your opportunity to chime in on this topic or anything else you want to. So at this point, I guess I would introduce Gene Madden.
Thank you. Thanks to the council. Hello, everyone. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Gene Madden, and I live on Gladys Avenue in Grand Haven. I'm the co-founder of the group Save Our Forest Grand Haven, but I'm here as a member of the Sustainability and Energy Commission. Tonight, I'm going to provide an update on the work of the Commission's Forest Management Subcommittee. There are several members here from that subcommittee. My presentation will be short, about 15 minutes, and then I'll hand it off to Nick, who I haven't met in person. Nick Kalgis from the Michigan Department of Natural Resources. He's a wildlife biologist. Nick can answer questions pertaining to our last work session on deer management, as well as any other deer-related questions you may have. So to begin, I'd like to summarize the findings of the city's forest stewardship plan referenced above and passed in November of 2022. According to the 2022 city-approved forest management plan, our forests are in grave danger from invasive pathogens and deer overgrazing. The deer have decimated the critical forest understory and inhibited tree planting efforts, leading to erosion of our critical dunes. That plan laid out the threats to Grand Haven's urban forests in stark terms. Tonight, we're going to focus on deer overgrazing and the council's request for a citywide deer count. We'll start with a timeline of recent events, move on to the critical need for deer management, and then review the findings of drone and deer street counts. Lastly, as I mentioned, we've arranged to have Nick here to answer all your questions. So on behalf of the Commission, I want to express our appreciation to the Council for all of your support in protecting and preserving our forests. It started with your approval of that 2022 Forest Stewardship Plan. As critical needs were identified, the city allocated significant funding for both disease treatment and removal of dead and sometimes hazardous trees in Lake Forest Cemetery and Mulligan's Hollow. The resolution you passed authorizing the purchase of a drone made this presentation possible. I also recognize you have many competing priorities and almost as many opinions as there are on each topic as there are residents. Our goal has been to bring you data, evidence, and experts to help enable your decisions. My involvement with Save Our Forest Grand Haven began with an email to City Council in November of 2022. Council members at that time suggested I meet with like-minded residents Larry Burns and Jim Matthews. A short time later, Save Our Forest Grand Haven was born. In June of 2023, Jim Matthews and I were appointed to the Sustainability and Energy Commission. In March of 2024, Jim Matthews and I presented our findings in a council work session on deer management. In July, the council approved the purchase of a drone. In January of this year, we conducted a deer census using both a thermal imaging drone and street count, and tonight we'll present our findings. Our goal is to restore our forests so they not only able to support a healthy population of deer, but also a biodiverse array of native plants, insects, birds, bees, and butterflies. In other words, we want to reestablish a healthy forest ecosystem. Before we dive into the data, I'd like to offer an explanation of how we arrived where we are today. In ecology, there's a phenomenon known as shifting baseline syndrome, where each generation perceives the environmental conditions they grew up with as normal. As ecosystems degrade over time, people lose track of what healthy, intact ecosystems look like because the baseline of what is normal keeps declining with each generation. As an example, my husband, at the top photo there on the slide, has been visiting or lived in Grand Haven since he was a kid in the mid-1960s. And he says that back then, Trillium and other native plants absolutely blanketed the dunes. And a local deer sighting was incredibly rare. I started visiting Grand Haven regularly after we got married in 1998, and I remember deer sightings becoming more common and Trillium sightings becoming fewer and further between. Our son Ian, whom I am very proud to report, just received his master's degree in plant biology from Northwestern University, has never seen a Trillium in Grand Haven, but he is accustomed to seeing large groups of deer in woods, in yards, on streets, really wherever he travels around the city. Our family experience illustrates how the ecological baseline has shifted in Grand Haven, and unfortunately, it's been a steady path of decline and deterioration for our forests. It's therefore possible that our baseline has shifted in Grand Haven to the point where many think our forests have never had a healthy understory of native plants, or they're resigned to the new normal of barren dunes and ground under our forest canopy. What's especially distressing is not only are we losing mature hemlocks, beech, and oak trees to invasive pests, the forests are not regenerating naturally because the deer are eating tree saplings before they are able to mature. It's also futile to plant replacement trees in the forest, which I'll illustrate on the next slide. While walking in Lake Forest Cemetery last year, I was thrilled to see that the Department of Public Works has been planting new trees, including a tulip tree, my favorite native species. I'm a little, as you can probably imagine. The picture on the right is a 6-point buck strolling across our driveway on Gladys Avenue. Unfortunately, it's bucks like this one that killed the newly planted trees in Lake Forest Cemetery through a behavior known as antler rubbing. It's especially apparent on the picture on the left of the screen. I noticed recently that the DPW has removed the 3 dead trees and planted grass seed. Not only did we lose 3 important tree species in our overall canopy, I would guess it cost the city a good deal of money to buy and plant new trees, remove them after they died, and reseed the area. I don't know how many trees the city loses each year because of deer rubbing and overgrazing, or the overall economic impact, but limiting those losses might help offset the cost of professional deer management. I realized in preparation for this presentation, my photos of our forest understory were a little bit old. A few short weeks ago, well, it was July 31st to be exact, I drove to the 3 parks to take photos of the forest understory. I wasn't even halfway to the parking lot in Duncan Woods when I took the photo on the far left. You see a deer attempting to forage, but there was very little to eat. I next went to Mulligan's Hollow. I walked along the baseline of the dune just off Lake Avenue. Within minutes, took the shot in the middle of the screen. While one deer is in this photo, there are actually 2 browsing among the falling trees. While it may look like there's an abundance of plants growing, I'm sorry to report they are largely made up of invasive species like barberry and honeysuckle, which the deer do not eat. I was happy to see, however, a good number of very small red oak saplings. While white-tailed deer generally don't prefer red oak saplings as forage, they will consume them when other sources are scarce. We'll see if any of those saplings survive the summer and fall as food dwindles with the onset of winter. Next, I drove to Lake Forest Cemetery. Remember, I took all of these photos within a 30-minute time frame. So that's 6 deer in 30 minutes, not even a mile apart. You'll notice there are 3 deers in this picture, 2 adults and 1 fawn. As I was preparing to take the shot, one of the does jumped up to browse on a tree. According to the 2024 National Deer Association report, this type of browsing is a red flag, indicating that there are too many deer and not enough food. So not only are the forests suffering, but our local deer population is as well. The next question is, how do we know it's the deer that are the problem? Honestly, the evidence is overwhelming and has been understood for generations. As an example, there's a fascinating and often cited study conducted in 1928 in Michigan's own George Reserve. This fenced preserve, managed by the University of Michigan, is 25 miles northwest of Ann Arbor. The 1,200-acre study site is 6 times larger than our forest, Lake Mulligan's, Duncan, and Lake Forest Cemetery. In 1928, researchers introduced 4 does and 2 bucks to initiate the study. By 1933, the deer population had surged to approximately 160 individuals in 5 years, demonstrating the exponential growth in the absence of predators or hunting. Deer overbrowsing quickly became evident. The herd was reduced to 75 and then to 50 before evidence of overbrowsing dramatically decreased. The reduced herd was then considered in equilibrium within its range. Annual or near-annual deer harvest programs are conducted to this day at the George Preserve, which is still in operation by the University of Michigan, and hundreds of research projects have taken place there in order to sustain understory diversity and forest regeneration. I tried to visit. Unfortunately, the director was out of town for the summer, but I'd love to go if anyone would like a field trip. As a reminder, here's what a healthy native Michigan forest understory can look like. An array of native species is both beautiful to look at and provide habitat for a wide variety of insects and mammals. Balancing the forest so that all types of animals, not just deer, can survive and even thrive should be our goal. Now let's talk about the request made by Council last March. After our presentation, you specifically asked for an updated count of the deer in the city of Grand Haven. The next slide outlines how we approached that request. So after this council passed a resolution to purchase a drone for ecological studies, we completed that acquisition thanks to a mixer grant from the Grand Haven Area Community Foundation and generous donations by Save Our Forest contributors. To protect the privacy of city residents, drone flights are only permitted over public property. In this case, we flew the drone over 200 acres of forests in Duncan, Mulligan's, and Lake Forest Cemetery. Because we were limited to flying the drone over public property, we also hired Berg's Pest Control to simultaneously drive city streets and count deer visible in yards, on sidewalks, and driveways. Berg's truck is equipped with an infrared camera to help identify harder-to-see deer. Now let's briefly review the drone survey data. In some cases, the images collected by the drone were unmistakably deer. In others, the images look like deer but were not 100% verifiable. Please note this drone count was limited to the 200 acres of forest. The count recorded 68 likely sightings of deer with an additional 44 possible sightings, for a total estimate of between 68 and 112 deer. Outside of the forest, Berg's Pest Control counted 55 deer. That number, added to the estimated forest deer population, gets you to a range of 123 to 167 deer citywide. However, it's important to note that this is probably a very low estimate because many parts of the city were not accessible for surveying, such as areas of Highland Park, other areas without road access, and behind houses and businesses, which prevented Berg's from imaging those deer. And as a reminder, the George Reserve study determined that their 1,200-acre fenced-in parcel could only support 50 deer. That concludes my presentation. Now I'm going to hand it off to Nick to address your inquiries from the last deer management work session and any other questions you may have. So Nick, if you'd like to come up to the microphone. And I put one question on each slide, so you can just advance if you'd like to the next slide, or I.
See the first question up there? Do you believe the number of deer counted in Grand Haven exceeds a healthy carrying capacity? I think we always kind of get into this issue of what is the right number of deer. And honestly, I think that probably most communities, including Grand Haven, would be well advised to look at it more like an honest assessment of what your deer issues are important to your community. Is it the loss of plant diversity or landscaping damage issues for landowners? Maybe deer behavioral changes, if you see, fawning territories in your yard or negative interactions with pets. Is wildlife viewing an important thing? So recreational hunting possibly. So I think the better way to look at the issue of deer numbers is really what is the impact on the community, honestly.
Do you want me to advance?
Is that this one?
That's one, yep.
Second question, is it worth trying to manage the deer? Won't that just create a vacuum and deer in the surrounding area will flood into that to fill that vacuum? That's actually a little bit more complicated question than you might think. Certainly, a lot of deer in this part of southern Michigan can live out their entire lifespan in a fairly small area, 1 or 2 square miles often. It doesn't take, as long as the requirements for their life, whether in the form of food and escape cover, water, fawning territories are there, they don't travel like in the Upper Peninsula. You'll see deer move 70, 80 miles from summer range to winter range to go into winter yards, but that doesn't happen around here. That being said, there are still travel corridors that are used by deer on the fringes and along river systems like the Grand River. We know that deer will cross from Lindquist Dunes over into the south side of the Grand River. That does happen fairly routinely. So deer will move around and take advantage on these fringe areas of territories that are available to them. And eventually they will fill in some of that vacuum. But it's a lengthier process than just an immediate issue. So there really isn't something that happens overnight. It's actually a much slower expansion than one might think. When is the best time of year to manage the deer? Well, again, traditionally we have managed our deer herds through hunting seasons. And in Michigan now, it's a pretty lengthy hunting season that runs from youth hunts in September all the way to extended hunts in January. So there's ample opportunity for Michigan hunters to harvest deer if they're in an area that is open and available for hunting. It used to be that people looked at, and we still deal with this to some extent, the issue of whether to harvest an antlerless deer or an antlered deer, a buck. And most hunters, not surprisingly, have kind of that traditional desire to take a nice buck. I think that's totally understandable. But if you are going to manage a deer herd population effectively, you have to manage both sides of the deer herd, not just the antlered males, but you also have to take the antlered females. And there's really, we live in a time, I'm an old guy, I can remember when antlerless permits were fairly scarce, but literally every legally licensed hunter in the state of Michigan can get up to 10 antlerless permits in the Lower Peninsula just by going to Myers and buying them over the counter. You can use your combo licenses or your regular licenses in an either or license mode. So It's not for lack of license availability that we're not getting the harvest that we need. And Ottawa County is no different than Kent County and a lot of our surrounding counties. We actually harvest more bucks than we do does. And again, that, in the long term, that's not any way to manage a deer herd. You really have to manage the female side of the herd fairly aggressively. So as far as the best time of the year, I would still think that, you know, the optimal time would really be, depending on whether you're talking the hunting seasons, October through January. If you're going for more of an extended kind of a cull situation, I'd say more November through February, but basically the winter months, late fall and winter months. Here's a good one. Does the DNR reimburse cities for deer removal as the deer are owned by the state? Let me just say, no, we do not reimburse cities. And the deer are technically not owned by the state. They're owned by all of you. You are the citizens of the state of Michigan, and those are your deer just as much as they're my deer. So, you know, we do not basically reimburse. We don't reimburse farmers for crop damage. We don't reimburse farmers or anyone for construction of deer-proof fences. Some states do, but not Michigan. All wildlife resources are defined as being collectively owned by the citizens of the state of Michigan. And I guess that's about it of the official questions. Certainly, I think both Gene and I would be happy to try to answer any other questions that might come up, though, from the folks here tonight, if you have any or anything like that.
So we're done with the presentation, or did you want to call any members of your committee who might have further information for us, or is this it?
This is what we had prepared.
Okay.
So now we're thinking time for your questions.
I didn't know if, for example, I think Larry did the drones, ran the drone for you.
If anybody has anything to add.
If
certainly.
you have, yeah, if they have anything to add or you have specific.
Okay,
questions.
otherwise I'll just open up to council for questions. And as I mentioned when I opened this work session, those of you in the audience who want to comment to council will have to wait for the regular meeting to do it during a call to the audience. But this is the time when council can interact with the presenters. So, questions?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for the presentation and for the data. That's something that we all look for, and from my perspective, you surely have presented a compelling argument of deer management. I personally had lost a tree in front of, a brand-new tree in front of our house a couple years ago because of deer rubbing. You know, it's something that I think is a huge problem in this community. You know, I talked about Lyme disease and so forth that comes along with it. I think that is I watched my father go through it for 2 years, so I know how.
In that regard?
Pardon?
Do you have a question for Nick in that regard, since he's here?
No,
Okay.
it's just a comment, to be very honest with you, Gene, thank you. You know, your comment about the surrounding areas, and deer moving into Grand Haven if we start some type of deer management. I know Ottawa County does it on a yearly basis. So I don't know if they get this crowd, I have to ask Josh, but I don't think they get the crowd like this in the county. So, you know, I find it kind of interesting that the county does it on a yearly basis, and it seems like it's all focused here in Grand Haven. I think you've presented, Gene, you and I go back from the start of this. I think it's a huge problem in this community. I want to save our forest. You know, Muggins Hollow and Duncan Park and the cemetery are beautiful pieces of land, and I think we should make sure that we can continue to let them grow. So I don't need a lot of convincing, to be very honest with you. I'll support, you know, whatever comes before us when it comes to this, but I think it's something that's critical to this city.
Yeah, what we really wanted was the data part of it and seeing what was coming up on it. And I see that there's 3 days of taking different pictures in different areas and that. We don't know if it was the same deer you counted in 3 days at different areas. But at least we have some kind of data to go by, and that's what we were looking for. As council, we wanted to see some proof on what it is. But I'm still, it'd be nice if you did it all in one day. If you could do that, it would be great, because we know what the movement is. We just don't know what the movement of the deer are themselves. But thank you so very much for everything you did, and this is at least something for us to go on and look at. I just like to, we just got this report today. It was not out earlier for us to read over, so I apologize for any of us not knowing what the outcome might be on this, but this is what we really were looking for. So thank you so very much for all your hard work.
Okay, I just have a couple of questions. And maybe, Larry, do you mind coming up to the microphone? Hate to single you out, but I know that you were involved in the counting or in the operating the drone. So the question about the sequence or the days that the drone was run and whether or not you're counting the same deer multiple times, or whether you could tell the difference, or if you did areas so close to each other that that wasn't an issue. Could you speak to that just a bit?
I think it's a really important question. We were advised to be very thoughtful in the way in which we approach that. So we shot at the same time each day. And so the logic was, if there was a set of deer that were going to leave it by 9:30, if there were some folks who were sleeping later the following day, well, maybe we did double count them. But we did our very best to minimize that concern by doing the same thing sequentially across the 3 different days at each of the different locations. I don't know if that answers your question, but that was our best effort to sort of control for
Okay.
the deer that would be leaving by 9:30 in the morning kind of thing. So we started it just around after sunrise on each sequential day in each of the different locations. So Mullins Hollow was first, Lake Forest was first, Mullins Hollow was second, and Duncan Park was third,
So you're confident we counted different deer each day?
to the best of our ability.
I mean, you can't tell they don't have name tags, but
That'd be correct.
so it's, and I know the census is hard to do because it is hard to identify them, and it's hard to tell them from the background sometimes, and so you have likely deer and probable deer.
Well, it's actually kind of cool. The drone allows us to take a photograph and the thermal image at the same time. So what we did is we compared the thermal image with the photograph, and so there were clearly, it's a light pole that's emitting heat. And so then what Grant did was say, well, I could take this and evaluate the photo and clearly eliminate those things which were emitting heat. A person with a dog, you know,
Right.
it was clearly not a deer, but drilling down that way, and then there were certain things that were not easily distinguished from a deer or a not deer. So that was the subset of things which were small and emitting heat, but they were distinctly not a light post or a human walking a dog.
Okay, no, I just think we wanted to clear up what the data means, because that was important to us. And going back to Nick's point, trying to judge what are we trying to accomplish, basically. So Nick, thank you, Larry. I kind of understand your point about we're trying to manage to an outcome. And I've always been one to push for, let's find out, can we estimate how many deer there are? Is there a number there? We can compare that to what makes sense in urban areas. Because I think the rest of it is pretty subjective, and this is something we can kind of count and measure have some way of measuring success. I think we need to know when we've accomplished something. And if the measure of success is people's satisfaction with the environment around them, that's going to be different for a lot of people. So this is why I've always asked for, can we estimate how many deer there actually are and then control that? I understand your point, and I don't know if you have any better input than that.
I guess I would just say to that, that there's nothing wrong with having that kind of a useful index of population. But from that starting point, you almost have to then determine what is the outcome of any management method that you use. And are you moving in the positive direction or the direction that you wanted? Is that being demonstrated by, different plant survival, out there as far as plantings as well as native species? So again, at that point in time, you're trying to see, is the method or the outcome that you're getting, is that based on your management style or effort there?
So when the question is, how do you measure success? Success would be measured over a period of time. It wouldn't be something that we do something and then right away we're happy. It would take some time to see what the impact is.
It would be. I mean, just like the problem doesn't happen overnight, neither does the solution, as far as that goes. If you get into a deer management program, it's certainly something that I would consider, looking at it for the long haul, and then applying whatever method is the community's decision and, or methods, and trying to, not just treat it as a one-time treatment, and go forward with an intent to kind of follow through on this over a longer period of time.
Okay.
I do have something to add. It wasn't originally in my presentation, I didn't know if it was relevant, but the city did a flyover, thermal imaging flyover, I believe it was a helicopter flyover in 2018, and if the number is sticking in my head, I know it was over 150. I think it was 167 deer, which is right about within our estimate. So there have been estimates that high in the past, so it's not unprecedented.
Right. And I'm not familiar with the flyover of 2018. I know that in 2013, 2014, we did.
I wasn't involved with the flight, but I do remember the estimate, yeah. That
Yeah.
is correct number, I think.
I remember prior to that, we did the spotlight surveys and attempted to get a handle on that. And that was another one where you drive as fast as you can all over town so that you're not double counting deer, and do it from the back of a pickup truck. I remember sitting in the back of that pickup truck with a pad of paper. I wasn't doing the counting, I was recording for them. So we've tried a number of ways to get an idea where they, not just how many there are, but where they are and where they're coming from and such. And this is another one where I know, Matt, Dean, you and I have talked about, I was hoping to get it as citywide as possible, and I don't really know much about the street surveys and how they were conducted or when they were conducted, and I'm not sure if they reinforce this data or if they're totally separate set.
Yeah, and Tom drove with Berg's Pest Control, so he can answer that.
Okay.
I will ask you to keep in mind the fact that, again, there are many places Berg's could not drive, like at the airport, many areas of Highland Park, lots of parcels near railroad tracks. So, in my opinion, this has to be an undercounting of the deer.
Okay, yeah, because
Tom,
we're
if
looking
you'd
at,
like to-
we're looking at a third of a square mile of a 6 square mile city, where it's really concentrated. But we have natural areas throughout the city, and so it'd be nice to have a picture of the entire community.
Yeah, and what was difficult there, of course, is that we can't fly the drone over private property, which I agree with. I'm happy about that restriction. I want my privacy too. But it makes the count so much more difficult and complicated. And
Right.
I don't know if any city has a really accurate way to count the deer.
I think all these urban areas struggle with the same thing. Camera surveys are used, using their public safety personnel for counts. That's been certainly tried. Flyovers in certain instances can be used if there's, not public or private property areas that are impacted negatively. So, but it's a difficult one. I mean, most of our population estimates are on a much larger scale. So when you get right down to, a small portion of an urban area, there's a lot of plus or minus factor there.
Yeah, I understand. I'm disappointed to hear we won't get reimbursed.
From my perspective, I don't care if it's 68 deer or 168 deer, the damage has been done. And, and it's going to continue that way. I mean, I went to work the other day and there was 5 deer walking down the street like they owned it. And right on Ohio Avenue. So, I mean, it's nice to have the data, but just look at the forests. That's, I just don't understand, why, we're talking about 68 or 168. I think you have to look at what's going on in this community. And to turn your back on it, I think is irresponsible.
So I don't have any other questions. I don't have any other questions at this point. Thank you for presentation. I do like data, even though not everybody sees value in it. I like to have it. And I think it does inform us in terms of what we do going forward.
Thank you.
Wonderful. And I'd like to thank Nick coming
Yeah,
all the
thank
way
you,
from
Nick.
Lansing.
Thanks, Nick.
Appreciate your coming out.
Very much.
Thank you, Nick.
I did not come from,
Oh, you didn't? Oh, okay.
I don't even
I take it
like
all
the
back.
idea
No. Okay.
But anyway, thank you, Nick, for
And
coming
thanks
out.
to the council
Appreciate
for your
that.
time. I really
All
appreciate
right,
it.
and so, because we don't have a public comment period in our work session, I would ask you all to stick around for our regular meeting. And then shortly after that opens, we'll have a call to the audience, and you can all address council at that point in time. If there's any questions or comments from council?
No.
Okay, well, in that case, we're going to close this work session, and we'll resume at 7:30. So take a break.
they're controlling the deer, how many can get shot, how many can't. Yeah. You can do both things, but stop. They should be a partner with us. That's where we're at.
I have a random confession to make to you. So, my voicemail was broken for an undetermined amount of time. And when I finally got it back, I had a voicemail from you about, like, expecting something in the mail from me and explaining what it was.
get it away from you guys, a little bit, but second, and closer to the source of the problem. Maybe they'll be more concerned if it starts with, it ends with them. But then approaching these guys and saying, hey, what's happening? We get charged additional, if some of that stuff happens. So who's got the to-do on that?
I'll talk to Ashley. Please find a seat. Welcome to this regular city council meeting for the city of Grand Haven for Monday, August 18th, 2025. Maria, would you please call the roll?
Fritz.
Here.
Lowe.
Here.
McLaughlin.
Here.
Manetza.
Here. We have no pastors here for our invocation, but please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have no appointments or reappointments this evening, so it brings us to the approval of the consent and regular. Can I get a motion?
So moved?
Support?
Motion by Fritz, second by Lowe. Any changes to the agenda on the part of anyone?
No.
No.
Please call the roll.
Fritz.
Yes.
Lowe.
Yes.
McLaughlin.
Yes.
Manetza.
Yes. We have here a continuation of work session. We concluded our work session a little early, and that leads us straight into our call to the audience. I think many of you are here to speak about what you heard in the work session or anything else that you would be interested in addressing council on. I will caution you that there is a pair of public hearings. They have to do with a project downtown. If you want to comment on the project at the old jewelry store, I'd wait until that public hearing. And there's a second call to the audience at the end of the meeting if you want to wait until then. But anyone who would like to address council now on any item, please come forward. Give us your name, address. You get 3 minutes of speaking time. We'll hear all comments for future consideration. Will not have a response at this time. And you may also call in 616-935-3203.
Good evening, folks. Rich Clapp, 217 Grand Ave, in Grand Haven here. I just wanted to, mention that, and I know at least two of you know about the meeting. This has been going on for 15 years. We've been talking about deer, at least 15 years. So I pulled up some meeting minutes from back in 2009, January 2009, and I'd like to read them. Dr. Adam Kantrovich, who was a guest speaker from MSU, of the director of the MSU Cooperative Extension, noted that biologists agreed that there were issues within the natural habitat that were pushing deer out. Major indicators in the city of deer overpopulation were the lack of understory in the woodland areas and major erosion. Another indication of overpopulation was that the deer were being seen in town, and I highlighted this. He said, very profoundly, naturally, deer should be unseen. I see them all the time, and we all do. Does were even fawning on residents' decks. This is back in 2009, and it's probably ringing true today for many of you. Once the maximum over-carrying capacity was reached, deer would experience a long and painful death due to starvation and disease. This is from the biologist. Since there were no natural check and balance in the city, there was a need to reduce the size of the herd. The Michigan DNR did not allow birth control as it was not proven effective and was a very expensive process. The use of professional sharpshooters were the best method used, and that's from a Michigan State biologist. And I'd like to add on, we're now getting invasive species predators in Grand Haven. You may be aware of that. I've had sightings of coyote in my backyard. I've had 2 deer hit on Grand Ave in front of my house, and they wander into the backyard and die. My wife took a photo of a coyote that within minutes had found that deer and was consuming the dead deer in my backyard. I also found a bobcat in the backyard as well. And those are also known for preying on small fawns and elderly deer. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Richard.
Hello, my name is Chris Roberts. I live at 1625 Gladys Circle in Grand Haven. And I wanted to start by reminding people how our wooded dunes are at the core of Grand Haven's identity. They're vitally important to tourism, to our local economy, to property values, and even more important, to our quality of life, our mental health, our souls, and the planet. So I'm befuddled by how we've let this incredible natural asset, our forests, degrade to the point where their future is now uncertain. I've been a visitor, vacationer, and resident in Grand Haven all my life. I remember years ago going on dune walks and marveling at the lush layers of growth under a dense tree canopy and a thick white blanket of trillium cascading down the sides of the dunes. Today, our forest floors are completely barren, and many parts of the forest look like they've been hit by a hemlock, oak, and beech tree-seeking neutron bomb. So how did we get here? Forests will always be threatened by extreme weather, drought, erosion, invasive species, and disease. But if you take away the forest's natural ability to restore and replenish themselves, you've got a death spiral on your hands. Our forests are now in a death spiral for one primary reason. For years, there's been an uncontrolled runaway deer population in Grand Haven. Deer are alarmingly voracious eaters, and new trees and native plants don't grow anymore in our forests because they're eaten by deer. There's way too many deer for our forests to support. And after far too many years of ignoring the problem or pretending it's not a problem, we need the city to step up and enact a deer management program that can get this overgrown population back under control. If we don't, we're going to lose our forests, plain and simple. I guess the one thing I have yet to hear on this issue is an argument why you shouldn't manage the deer. I haven't heard anyone talk about how having an out-of-control deer population is a benefit to the city. To those who would say it's inhumane to deer to manage their population in Grand Haven, I think local hunters would beg to differ. To those who want the deer population to remain unchecked so they can go to the cemetery and throw carrots and corn cobs their way or feed them marshmallows through a car window and feel like they're communing with nature, I would say that's not communing with nature. That's communing with deer in crisis. That's communing with deer in starvation mode. Personally, I think it's abusive to treat them that way. Up until now, it seems like we've been sacrificing our beautiful forests and all the native plants and other animals that live in them and depend on them at the altar of deer. I implore you not to let that be the legacy we leave to future generations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello,
Hello.
my name is Jason Valier, and I reside at 1355. Well, thank you. North Peterson Road in Muskegon, Michigan. Am I allowed in here?
You're fine.
Muskegonite. I'm actually just here for the free popcorn.
You missed out.
Oh, shucks. No. So I'm a street performer. I perform karaoke. And I did so at the Coast Guard Festival recently and got pretty rave reviews doing it. Like right at Snug Harbor, I set up. And I also like raise money for Michigan Sober Social. That's what all proceeds that I get go to. Anyhow, long story short, I've done that same thing a couple of times on Washington Avenue, right on this street, and was visited by an officer each of those times, and the officer themselves wasn't clear on whether or not the city does allow use of an amplified speaker. And they suggested I come to City Hall to talk about that and find out if it is allowed or not. As far as I can tell, looking at the ordinance, it says no use of an amplified speaker between 9 p.m. and 7 a.m. And so it seems like it would be okay. But both times I got shut down because of one complainer, even though there's probably 100 to 1, people that enjoy my performing. But one person, disturbs their peace, and obviously officers, who are super nice, by the way, great public officials here. I do the same thing in Muskegon, and I don't have any problem. So I was wondering, for clarification in Grand Haven, if it's allowed or not allowed. So I don't know where I get the answer, if anybody has it, in their magic Rolodex here.
You'll have to talk with our administrative people.
Okay,
Okay.
very good.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Chad Fisk. I live at 709 Lake Avenue here in Grand Haven. I wanted to talk about the deer management meeting that you guys just had, following up on a few things related to measuring success, because I do think, Bob, you did raise some really good points about measuring as a baseline for understanding how much or how many deer there are. I think that's really good, but I just wanted to caution the group not to use that as a measure for success moving forward. It's great to have a baseline, and in any scientific approach, you use the scientific method to be able to evaluate your solutions. But the solutions that we're all seeking is really going to be evident using our eyes. I would love to be able to not have 20 deer walking through my yard every day. I have probably anywhere between 2 to 8 walking on Elizabeth, grazing in the morning. They come through at the night, and it's about the same number. Sometimes I've seen herds of up to 12 deer. I've seen a 10-point deer with a 6-point deer and 5 female deer walking across the street, just owning it like it's nothing. And so while it might be hard to measure the data, I think it's important not to try to strive for perfect data. And I think the city would notice those results after a call or some type of management program. Additionally, I do agree that it does need to be a permanent long-term solution, and managing over the course of 10 to 20 years with recurring management solutions that are monitored on an annual basis is critical. But lastly, I just wanted to share that I've really discovered how much of a deer problem we had when I tried to grow a prairie in the front of my yard. It's taken 2 years. It's a registered wildlife sanctuary for butterflies. I finally got some monarchs coming, but that process to get from seed to a fully grown plant has taken a while. And the thing I've noticed about the deer is that they come through my yard, they'll graze whatever plants they can get down to nothing, and then they'll walk across to Mary and Kennard Creason's old house. They'll go up there, they'll graze, then they'll disappear, and then they'll go around. I can see sometimes they go around Duncan Woods, cross the street, go to Highland Park, they come back back into Mulligan's Hollow, and then 2 to 3 days later, conveniently, all of my little seedlings, that's usually about enough time for them to start getting leaves again. And then the deer can get them. And my opinion is that they know and they're habituated enough to know, and there's enough of a population that their deer don't come around until the plants come back. And to me, that's a significant indicator that there's too many of them. And that's all I wanted to share. Thanks, my time's up.
Thank you, Chad.
Good evening. My name is Patricia Johnson. I live at 220 Sherman. I'm at the corner of Sherman and Butler Street, which is the continuation of 3rd. Sherman is up from Mulligan's Hollow in the Y. The deer problem in our neighborhood has just intensified over the last 3 years. My concern is that it's a health and safety issue for ticks, for emaciated deer walking around in the neighborhood. The sightings of deer in our neighborhood, last summer we probably had 7 fawns born in our neighborhood. I mean, and I'm 4 or 5 blocks from Mulligan's Hollow and Duncan Woods and the cemetery, but we had, I'm not sure what the DNR term was, the fawn drop. The does would drop them next to the neighbor's front steps, 10 feet from the sidewalk. We had deer, these are all sightings of deer during daylight hours. 7:30 in the morning, right before the school bus, darting across the intersection. 9 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 4 or 5 deer running across the intersection up in lawns. I think the best example of a scary situation, last summer, we had another one this summer, but last summer, our neighborhood is an overflow parking lot for anything that's going on at the beach, obviously. So there were cars everywhere, people everywhere, something at the beach, something downtown. People pulling wagons with kids, people on e-scooters going down the street, people riding their bikes, people walking dogs. And here comes 2 does at 3 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon with that amount of activity. It's scary. They darted out in between people. They almost knocked a wagon over with kids. And this goes on constantly. This year we've had, well, the other day, 5 fawns and 2 does walking down Butler Street. at 9:30 in the morning. So maybe they're counted twice, but it doesn't matter. We've got now 7 fawns from last summer and 5 fawns from this summer, just in my neighborhood. It's time for a call in Grand Haven. I think the fact that the county has a deer management program that they enforce every year, and I was concerned about with the information that was given during the work session, the flyover in 2018, was it? Over 150 deer were spotted by plane. That's significant. And I think that when they're running around in town, we were coming up from Ice Cream up Sherman from the boardwalk, teenagers coming out of Mulligan's Hollow, chasing the deer at 8 o'clock at night into the Sandpiper condo development. And you could hear, I don't know if the deer broke the fence down, but he was in the air jumping. So it's time for something to happen here, and it's irresponsible of the city in terms of health and safety. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Roger Vandermolen. I live at 505 Park in Grand Haven. Back in 2017, I made a presentation to the council regarding devastation of greenery, the overabundant deer herd within the city. Since that time, I've seen very little action by the city. I've served on the Deer Management Committee under Save Our Forest. We submitted a bunch of data to the city. And about the only thing I've seen done is the drone purchase. But I think it's time that this council or a city council takes action for a deer management program. Don't wait for somebody to do it for you. Your citizens are suffering because of it. Deer go up and down our street every day, but not just near Duncan's Woods. All over the city, up near the middle school, across Beacon Boulevard. You don't need a deer count to know that we have an overabundance of deer. How many? Who knows? But please, I ask that you take action. Back in 2017, I made my presentation. I gave you a comprehensive copy of a deer management program for the city of Ann Arbor. Tremendous program that they had to control their deer herd. Nothing ever came of it in Grand Haven. It's time that you act. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger.
My name is Jeffrey Miller. I live at 1120 South Harbor Drive. I, along with Bill Pushaw, who had to leave, were some of the other members of the working group for Save Our Forest subcommittee. And we just wanted to emphasize that Jean's presentation, while excellent and that she created, was based not on consensus of our working group. It was a unanimous opinion. So she was not speaking singularly, but she was speaking for the entire working group for Save Our Forest. With regard to data points, Bill Pushaw and I talked with Councilman Fritz just a few moments ago before council started, and Bill brought up an interesting data point that was sort of highlighted visually but was not enumerated with numbers, and that the data point for the number of trillium is 0. So when you're thinking about deer, again, please think about the flora and the fact that there is no flora on the floor of our forests. And then I'll leave you just with a couple thoughts. One is that I believe that nature abhors a vacuum. I also don't think that deer recognize geopolitical boundaries. And lastly, I believe you get what you pay for. So when it comes to making a decision to address the issues that are created by our overpopulated deer residents, it needs to be not just a one-year fix. I think it needs to be a long-term financial commitment, not only to execute the plan, but also to inform the public so that they know how their hard-earned tax dollars are being utilized and what they themselves can contribute to help resolve the problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Edward Snyder. I live at 1616 Gladys Circle. And you saw me maybe bolt out of here after the session, and I thank Jean for her presentation. But I went home real quick and just rewrote what I had because it was no longer, I recognized it was no longer applicable because you have all the data. You've had the data for year after year after year, and it's abundantly clear that Grand Haven has a deer overpopulation problem. The data isn't new. You've had it, like I said, for years. Going back, I cited in my original document the 2008 Urban Deer Management Plan by the city, and there was a plan that acknowledged the issue and authorized lethal control when necessary. In 2018, the city's own count showed herd numbers far beyond sustainable levels. And tonight, during your special work session, the people of Grand Haven filled this room, spilling into the hallways. Some of them have left, but nearly unanimous in their plea to reduce the herd and manage it responsibly. And yet, nothing's been done in all these years. Year after year, the problem grows worse, and our council seems stuck. I don't know if you're stuck in a paralysis by analysis, or if you just have a general unwillingness to remedy the problem. So, reports are produced, resolutions are passed, but real action never follows. And I hear others right here challenging you to take action. So during this period of time, residents have lost gardens. Our dune is eroding, others' dunes are eroding. Backyards, I was playing cornhole with some guests this weekend, and I stepped in a pile of deer dune. And I had bare feet on, and so it wasn't pleasant. And our forests are continually just being stripped bare. So I'm trying to speak truth with kindness, as I know governing isn't easy, especially managing the risks and the trade-offs of all your constituents. But leadership requires courage, and at this point, failure to act is not caution, it's neglect. The people have spoken with one voice, the data is crystal clear. Please stop studying the problem, start solving it, implement the call, authorize the hunts, do what you already know needs to be done. The time for more reports is past, the time for action is now. And finally, I respectfully request permission to submit an example from the City of Farmington Hills that was passed, their resolution that was passed on April 29, 2025, which adopted a clear, balanced plan of culling and regulated hunts, and it may serve as a template for the City of Grand Haven to move forward with clarity and resolve. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, if you have something, you can give it to the clerk.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sophia Galbavi, and I live at 1220 Franklin Ave.
And my name is Kari Taylor, and I live at 13748 Forest Park Drive.
And we have both lived in Grand Haven our whole lives, and we actually just graduated from Grand Haven High School this year. And while we were at the high school, we were the leaders for the Green Club, which is an environmental club. And we do projects around our school and community to help promote sustainability and to help our environment. We also are involved in helping the environment in other ways too. I am a member of the Forest Management Save Our Forest Committee, and Kari just got accepted into the Sustainable Learning Living community at the University of Michigan. And so we would like to come here to speak today.
Yeah, I think it's evident right now as we grow up, like there's not a ton of people our age who are here tonight, which is unfortunate. But I think a lot of people our age are frustrated with the political climate. We're wanting things to change, and we're wanting to begin taking those actions. And I believe Sophia and I are here tonight to speak for them and speak with them, and wanting to actually make a difference in our communities rather than just talk about wanting to make a difference. And that comes with actually encouraging you guys to be able to take those steps forward. It's very evident, no matter what the count looks like right now, our population for biodiversity is suffering. Like, we are missing a lot of other creatures who would like to live in our forests, which just don't have undergrowth to support them. Our deer are starving, they're malnourished, they are not able to support that life, like the ecosystem that would allow us to be able to have that balance right now, which is really unfortunate. It's clear, the count or not, that our undergrowth is suffering, which leads our cities to be suffering, and as an effect also leads us as citizens to also be hurt and affecting from it. Sophia and I have learned from this, from our experiences in our advanced placement classes at the high school. We've learned through our Green Club and like work outside of that. But you don't need to have the experience that Sophia and I have to be able to speak on this matter. You just need to be an active citizen, willing to acknowledge what is going on in our community. We are seeing a suffering, and we'd like to speak on that. We'd like things to change. We'd like you guys to take action.
Yeah, and I've been asked, is there another option than, culling the deer? And I would like to remind everyone that, again, we kind of have like a long-term plan for how we can restore our forests, which includes invasive species pools and, planting native species and all that good stuff. But we can't do any of that until we manage the deer. And as members of youth in this community, we would really like to see our city council stand for our values and stand for the future. And we would really like to have healthy ecosystems, healthy forests in the city we call home. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Cindy Spielmaker. I live at 512 South 7th Street, Grand Haven. I actually prepared something to present today, and then after hearing Jean's presentation, I threw it away. You don't need any more data. I agree with what everybody else is saying. We all know, we live here. We know what's going on with the deer. But the one thing that really struck me tonight, I didn't realize that the county had a deer management program. And it explains why, when I hiked in the spring at Rosie Mound, there were trillium. I saw trillium in the woods at Rosie Mound for the first time in years. I haven't seen trillium in Duncan Woods in I don't know how long, or at Mulligan's. I can't even remember. So that's your measurement right there. What are you seeing when you go walk places? And if we're seeing it in county areas, I don't know how long they've been doing the deer management. It's showing that it is working. So please take charge of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there. My name is Jerry Morlock. I also live at 512 South 7th. And my wife Cindy and I have lived in Grand Haven for 39 years, in the same house for 35 years, just a few blocks from Duncan Woods. So that's really where I see the need for action here is Duncan Woods. Duncan Woods, in my opinion, is much a part of the identity of this community, as the boardwalk or the musical fountain or many other wonderful features we have in town. And, we're hoping that our son will move back here someday. He's made noises like he wants to, and we would love him to do it. We would love for him and for his children to have many of the same features that Grand Haven had as we lived here. And so I urge you to take some action, and like others have said, please make it a continuing program. I think a quick Band-Aid approach probably is not correct in this case. It needs to be something well thought of over time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike Port, 400 Duncan Court. You can guess that I've seen deer around. Lots of them. I've had 16 deer in my front yard at any given time. All day long, the deer walk by the side of the house. The problem is, I spend hundreds of dollars to ward off the deer from eating every flower that we own. You can only plant certain flowers because the deer won't eat certain things, unless, of course, they don't know they like them yet, and then they will try them. But the ones they don't like, they just pull apart and leave late. So, you've heard it from everybody else here. Deer management's critical. I don't know if you don't realize this, but we live in the city of Grand Haven. We're not in the county, we're not in the township. We shouldn't have this many deer floating around Grand Haven. That's a problem. You know, when I grew up here 63 years ago, you hardly ever saw a deer. You'd see a raccoon once in a while, but never a deer. That was a rarity. Now, if I don't go a day without seeing deer, something's wrong. I have people driving down my street every day just looking for deer and tossing things out their windows so they can see them tomorrow. It's annoying, and it needs to be managed. That's it.
Thank you.
I'm Jenny Roberts. I live at 1321 Lake, and everyone has said what I wanted to say and had written down. But there's one thing I'd just like to point out, which is this is a responsibility for us to steward our natural areas, and it's also an opportunity for us. And I think to see it as an opportunity going forward should be inspiring. It could change dramatically, and we could have healthy forests, healthy wildlife here, and live, in a much better balance. And it's really important to take that step. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Nancy O'Neill, and I live at 216 South 2nd Street. The deer situation in Grand Haven must be managed, lest the deer destroy our forests and residential landscapes and endanger people's lives because of collisions with vehicles and other surprise encounters, such as one that I will describe. One afternoon in winter, I was trying to break up the ice that covered my driveway when a herd of deer, 2 with antlers, bounded through the yard in my direction. As they ran past me, I nearly fell, but managed to recover my balance. Nevertheless, my heart was racing, and I was quite distressed as I considered what might have happened if I had fallen on the ice. Just 3 blocks from downtown, deer reside in the woods behind my neighbors' homes, as well as in the woods between the apartment building and condominiums across the street. And that's 2 blocks from downtown. During the night, they go out to eat. Some rest in my front yard. If I go out and chase them away, they wait and soon return. And my husband wanted me to mention they leave their droppings all over the lawn. A few years ago, a friend who lives nearby was bitten by a tick in her garden, where deer regularly eat vegetation and stay overnight. She had a dramatic reaction to the bite and had to take medicine to prevent Lyme disease. A neighbor who is an avid gardener had an expensive 6-foot-high fence, 6 foot being the highest he could go, installed around his yard to enclose and protect his food and flower gardens. However, the deer managed to jump over the fence and destroy the garden as well as part of the fence. More importantly, deer are damaging our highly valuable forests. As you know, forests provide ecosystem services. Quoting from the U.S. Forest Service, healthy forest ecosystems are ecological life support systems. Forests provide a full suite of goods and services that are vital to human health and livelihood, natural assets we call ecosystem services. Many of these goods and services are traditionally viewed as free benefits to society or public goods. Wildlife habitat and diversity, watershed services, carbon storage, and scenic landscapes, for example, are all part of these goods. Lacking a formal market, these natural assets are traditionally absent from society's balance sheet. Their critical contributions are often overlooked in public, corporate, and individual decisions. Please don't overlook these benefits. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.
Karen Van Doren. I live at 1602 Gladys, on the corner of Gladys and Grand. Just an anecdotal story. As a property owner, it was concerning to me as my teacher neighbor was going to drive down, take a right, and stopped at 6:30 in the morning in February, and there were 30 deer in my front yard. And there were 6 deer across on Grand in my neighbor's yard, and there were 3 over on the other side of Gladys. And she took a picture and sent it to me. They haven't done that since. We have occasional deer. Obviously, they eat everything. But I was concerned about that. As a property owner, with the amount of taxes that I pay, I feel kind of unsupported because of the level of indecision or inability to control a situation and a problem we have. It bothers me. And I know that they were all there because in the spring I had to go up and clean up after them. And the whole front yard was full of deer dew. So I just needed to, I don't have data for it, but I just needed as a homeowner to say, this troubles me and it affects kind of how we pay our taxes. I think that maybe the deer should start paying them instead of me.
All right, thank you.
My name is Kent DeYoung. I live at 1328 Lake Avenue, right across from Cardoma Lodge's parking lot. When we bought the house in 1974, the dune behind us was covered with trillium, ferns, and maybe a deer or two once a month. Now I could rename our street behind us Deer Trail, because in the morning there are anywhere from 10 to 15 deer that walk from the cemetery, cross our neighbors, about 20 feet from our house, down to the end of our lot, cross the street, spend some time at Cardoma Lodge's parking lot, and come right back across. I'm not sure that there's an easy answer for the problem. There's not. We've had 4 baby deer in our yard, born in our yard this year. So that's all I have to say is something has to be done. It's not healthy. If I had to put my house up for sale, I'd say, if you don't want to have to go to the cemetery, go see the deer, buy my house.
All right, thank you.
I'm Larry Scott from 1814 Gladys. Another point of reference that I would make, we travel the country, we love traveling to small towns all over the country. And one thing that we do notice as we look at small towns, what does the vegetation look like? What do the parks look like? And honestly, if any of you have any doubt, if you were to travel to Fremont or some small towns, even in Michigan, take a look at the parks. And we come back to Grand Haven, we call it devastated Grand Haven, because there is a dramatic difference between the parks that we have and the parks that other cities have. It's appalling. And I, again, urge you to take some action.
Thanks, Larry.
My name's Greg Hagan. I live at 198 Grand Avenue. And Larry's deer come into my yard next door every single day. But my other neighbor pointed out that I was at the meeting in 2009 when one of our restaurant owners brought her grandkids dressed like deer. Maybe some of you remember that. But I couldn't believe when his note said 2009, it's been 16 years. 16 years. And the problem's bigger than it was then. When I bought my house in 2007, the entire yard was covered in Boston ivy. Much of Grand Avenue was, the hillsides, the retaining walls on Lake Avenue. The only Boston ivy, which is a deer-resistant plant now, is 5 feet and up on my oak trees. But 16 years we've been dealing with this, and something's got to be done. Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate everyone's comments on the deer. I'm going to switch subjects just for a minute. I'm on board. Peter Wilson, 322 North 2nd Street, Grand Haven. Tonight, the council will approve a short-term rental zoning change in a narrow portion of Centertown in the NMU. My opposition is noted. 1, I disagree with the public-facing narrative that this is not to benefit one specific development. 2, there are similar requests for existing properties that have been soundly rejected that may be equally or more deserving. It occurred to me that maybe I have it all wrong. So tonight I'm asking the council to offer rebuttal and let me know where I'm off the rails. In July last year, I went before the planning to discuss the possibility of short-term rental in the fully commercial heart of Centertown. And there was general agreement that the project was great. However, the biased introduction stated, the zoning ordinance has been carefully amended to determine where short-term rental may be permitted. The NMU has not been under any consideration for allowing short-term rental. Predictably, my fate was sealed in advance, and Chairman Doris stated that he reviewed the master plan and future land use, and neither supported the idea of short-term rentals in the NMU district. He mentioned he could not personally support this, and later added that the Planning Commission would not support this. I spoke with 4 other property owners in the 100 to 300 block of 7th Street who met similar blunt fates. I read one such letter at last meeting, but there are others similarly slighted who can be heard. So in August last year, the 12-unit capstone development was introduced and approved over the course of months with no mention of short-term want or need. Then in March 2025, the developer came back to planning to ask for short-term approval on this project. There was stated need to make the project financially favorable and sell units, simple as that. Never mind that no ground has been broken, and if it is not viable under the current rules, no one is forcing them to do it. Same boat as me. No short-term consideration in the NMU of Centertown. Case closed, I mistakenly thought. Following this, a zoning change application was submitted for short-term that listed the Centertown Overlay District as the property address. But the text of the application was laser-pointed to Steinbach Crossing in what was described as the first phase in a multi-phase plan. A 3-person planning task group was formed, headed by the same commissioner who summarily rejected short-term in the NMU in all of its forms with me. And tonight we have a newly amended ordinance to allow short-term rentals in the NMU, but only in this one area that is tied like a bow. A simple review of the eligible properties in this zoning change mapped over the planned phases of the development tells the story in a clear light. A door is open, a leg up is offered, while the door is closed for others until maybe later. To this point, the city will now pay a consulting firm to revisit the Centertown vision and make recommendations, including short-term rental best use. Great. Wait, let's do that. But what's the point of spending taxpayer money on this if you're going to do all this tonight anyway? This is policy in reverse order. This overlay loophole is the way to do what is expedient and convenient. It is not the way to do what is right for Centertown. So I invite the council to set me straight tonight. And I welcome the public and the press to reach out to me and go over this in greater detail. This onion has a lot of layers.
Thank you, Peter. Who else would like to address council?
Roger Bergman, 214 Washington. I remember 2009 pretty well. I think Mike remembers it. Bob, I think you were around 2009 also. But I won't go there. And there's a lot of things that have been said tonight that are right on, spot on. So I won't go into that either. But one of the concerns that I have that's been brought up tonight is why aren't we doing something about the fact that people are feeding the deer in the cemetery? And this is obviously going on every night, or most nights. That's what I've heard. People are going down there and cranking open their windows. They can't crank them anymore, that's right. They're lowering their windows and throwing food out to the deer so they can see the deer. They aren't pets. I think that's where we've gotten to the point where people think of the deer as pets. They're not pets, they're wild animals. We shouldn't have herds of deer in town. We have herds of deer. My wife and I have seen the herds. One morning when we were walking, we saw a herd of 28 in Central Park. And then when we were over by the water treatment plant, or the water plant, there was another 19. Those weren't the same deer. They were two different herds. They're herds, folks. They're not just Bambis. They're herds of deer. And I think you need, as you've heard from so many people here tonight, that you need to take this responsibility seriously. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger.
Jim Hagan, 400 Lake. I'd just like to make one quick comment, and I'd like to urge city administration to put together a resolution for the next meeting that puts in place a deer management plan and transfer the future decisions to the city administration, because we can't go through this with the city council year after year after year. There's no point in it, so please do that.
Good, John.
Oh, Mark Blauvelt. I live at 1844 Doris Avenue, and I'm not here about the deer. Actually, I'm here about the deer. I think the first way to solving a problem is to realize that we have one, and I think we do. We've seen over the years, we've been here since 1993, the erosion on the hill, the dune, because we're in the primary dune, behind us is incredible. You used to be able to look up and see green, now you just see dirt. And the deer are, as far as plants that they don't like, they pull them out. And so that's just as bad because they don't eat them, but they leave them on the ground. The safety issues, because there's just so many deer, I think is something to consider. And, you know, I think it really is just time to take action in some form or another. I have been walking through the cemetery and see people are feeding like crazy. I don't know if you put signs up or how you handle that, but there's carrots on the ground everywhere, and it's I guess it keeps them there instead of behind my house a little more. But other than that, I think we should definitely. I definitely support taking action on taking care of the problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Who else would like to address council at this time? There will be a public hearing on an unrelated item tonight, and there will be another call to the audience at the end of the meeting. But otherwise, this is your opportunity to address council before we do anything else. So if no one's coming forward, I'm going to close the call to the audience, and I appreciate all your input. Now we'll take just a moment for the audience to settle down. Sorry. Our next item on our agenda is a presentation from the Board of Light and Power with Rob Shelley. Rob? We still have a little bit of background noise if you want to wait just a few seconds.
Thanks for taking the time to, on your busy schedule, to give me a few minutes to kind of give you an update on what's going on in the Board of Light and Power. As you guys know, we've been trying to put together a joint meeting with the board and city council, and it's just not working out. So the city manager and I got together and we figured Next best thing is I'd come to you and just give you an update on how things are going at the Board of Light and Power, things we're working on. And so with that mindset, I kind of figured I'd start with, every year we go around and meet with what we call our key accounts, our large customers, our governmental agencies, et cetera. Anybody of, I won't say just note, but our key accounts. And I figured I'd give you that presentation, then add on to it what, Grand Haven specific things. So with that said, we'll jump into it, try to keep moving through. I think most everybody knows here. I'll give you some background on the Grand Haven Board of Light and Power. My name is Rob Shelley. I'm the general manager there. I think it's interesting to note we've been around since 1896, so in one way or another. We have over 15,000 customers. Of note is a little over 50% of our customers are not city residents. So we encompass 22 square miles of the area here, and we feed all of the city of Grand Haven, part of the city of Ferrisburg, Spring Lake Township, Grand Haven Township, and Robinson Township. So there's quite a bit of area where we are serving our community. In order to do that, we have 4 substations, 13 miles of transmission lines, and about 200 miles of distribution circuits around the area. So when we talk about things at the Board of Light and Power, there's kind of 3 things we talk about, kind of try to balance out: reliability, affordability, and sustainability. So when I'm meeting with our customers or key members like yourself, key stakeholders, I kind of want to hit a slide on each one of those to kind of let you know where we stack up on those things. So I did put a slide together. First one here is reliability. Just like any other business, we have a lot of acronyms, so I'll have to explain a few of them here on the slide for you. APPA is the American Public Power Association. So there's over 2,000 municipal utilities in the United States. And this is a membership of those 2,000 utilities. So what's important is we are comparing ourselves to peers. So if you're trying to compare us, let's say, against Consumers Energy, depends on what we're talking about, it's not really an apples to apples comparison, right? We have 15,000 customers, they have millions of customers. So you can't necessarily compare apples to apples there. So when we look at things like that, it's good to compare against our peers. The top one there is the RP3 award. That's Reliable Public Power Provider. What that means is not just reliability, but are you doing best practices? Are you training your people? Are you doing things safely? Do you have a 5-year plan? Those types of things they're looking at, checking those boxes. It's a 3-year evaluation. Over the last 2 periods, we have scored the highest level. So what does that mean? Just to get an award, an RP3 award, you're in the top 10% in the nation. We're even more exclusive than that. So there's a lot to be proud of what's going on here in our community. Same thing with our safety awards. Continually, year after year, not only are we giving you power reliable, but we're doing it safely. And that's not by accident, right? That's paramount. That's job number 1 for all of us. So we're proud of that because, once again, we're looking against other utilities, our size, our type of man hours, that type of thing, and we're still coming up, once again, in that top echelon of these 2,000 utilities. To give you some background information, our goal is to have less than 4 outage hours on our system on average. In 2023, ours was 2.65. The Michigan state average was over 5 hours. So we're roughly twice as reliable as the average utility in the state of Michigan. The little graph there kind of shows you what happens year after year. The big spike you see there is 2017. If you remember 2017, we had a heck of a storm come through here. So guess what? We weren't as reliable that year. But as you can see, we kind of hover around that 2 to 3 mark. The reason I have 2023 up there is we rely on this data comes out as a year late. So next year here, I'll be telling you about 2024 numbers. Spoiler alert, wasn't as good as 2023 for us, but we did meet our goal. Next bucket we talk about is affordability. So very important, I think, for everybody here. We are a community-owned non-for-profit. So everything we do is rate-based. So for other people in the room, nothing for your electric utility comes out of your taxes. It's all based on your rates. But everything we do collect goes back into our system. And we're pretty proud to say we're roughly 30% cheaper than our neighbors. We were the 8th lowest rates in all the state of Michigan in 2023. And if you know, a lot of people have raised their rates in the last few years. We haven't. So we're pretty proud of that. For commercial industrial, we're over greater than 16% more affordable. So once again, we're balancing all those things: reliability, affordability, and sustainability, and we're hitting all those marks. So really, how do we do that? One is, as you remember, we've been in a lot of conversations over power supply over the years. A diversified power portfolio. Our budget a year is $38 to $40 million a year. 20 million of that goes right out the door for power supply. So that's our biggest one-ticket item. So if we can control that, we can control our rates. So stability is the key. So that's making sure we have diversified power supply. So not any one fuel, not any one asset, not any one partner, not any one contract term. It's just like investing in for your retirement and your 401k, right? You don't want any one piece of stock. You want to spread that over all sorts of things. We do the same thing. We also maintain an adequate cash reserve. So we want to keep a cash balance. Why? Rainy day fund. We want to be able to float those, as you know, power fluctuates. We want to be able to float that and keep things stable for our customers. If you're running a home or a business in this community, you want to make sure that you're not going to get with a surprise bill, right? So we make sure we maintain an adequate cash reserves. Throughout that time, we've also set aside $17 million for our portion of Harbor Island. So, you know, Derek's been working hard on it. We're finally getting to the point where we're spending some money. Thank you. Let's get it done. Let's clean it up. But we've got the money set aside for that. So the good news is that means we're right on track for be able to fund that liability without really having to touch our rates. So that's a good thing. Two things looking forward. What do we have going on? So the state of Michigan has passed some new legislation in the last couple of years. In 2023, they passed this. So there's two things we have to now put on our bill. State law. The first one, there's a LIHEAP surcharge. That's Low Income Energy Assistance Fund. So there's two ways we could have done this. There's a statewide program. We could have done, it would cost us $1.25 per meter per month. State mandated line item on the bill. They gave municipalities the option to say, if you want to do your own program, you have to be equal to the state program, but then you have more flexibility on what you collect. You just don't write a check and send it to the state. You manage that fund. Thankfully, here in the community, we don't have the same need as other communities. We think we can do it better and more reasonable. We've always had an assistance fund. We called it our Hometown Helping Hand. So we're able to roll that money into there and roll that over and hopefully keep those prices down while still helping everybody that needs help. The next one is EWR. That stands for Energy Waste Reduction. This is a big one. The state has upped by 50% the amount of energy savings we're supposed to have. So I think last time I was here, I was talking about all the energy savings we have done over the years cumulatively. That was based on around 1% of savings a year. So their plan is to tell the Board of Light and Power, we want you to reduce your sales 1% every year. In 2026, that goes to 1.5%. And then they changed the rules. So in the old days, you remember we give away the free light bulbs. We can't do that anymore. So the low-hanging fruit's gone, so we have to get more savings at higher costs. It's going to cost us about $1 million a year. When I say us, I mean the community, right? It's just rate-based. So starting in December, you're going to see a $2 a month charge on residential. It goes all the way up to, for our largest customers, $700 a month. So here's my little pitch. It's a state program. We're going to do it. We want to be successful. So please, please check our website. Go participate. It's your money. Get your rebates. It's not the Board of Light and Power's money. It's your money. If you use it, we got a chance of being successful. That's what it's there for. If we don't use it, we're unsuccessful. We'll see what we have to do. It might end up actually having to raise rates to be able to get things done. So there's my little plea that please, please, please help us meet our goal. It's going to be a hard one. I mean, that's why I'm pushing on it so hard. It's a hard lift. I have doubts, and a lot of us have doubts that we're going to be able to hit this. So there is some concern there, but we're going to do the best we can. Next one kind of rolls into something we kind of just talked about. Energy waste reduction and sustainability. So through our diversified power supply portfolio we were talking about earlier, currently we're at 26% green energy, and I define green energy as wind, solar, landfill gas, those types of things. Reason I make that distinction is we'll talk about clean energy. Clean energy is different from green energy. Clean energy also includes green energy, but it also includes nuclear or natural gas with carbon capture. Why that's important, we'll get to that in 2040, but today we'll skip over that. By 2027, we're our goal to be at 30% renewable, so we already have contracts to meet that level. The state mandate, back to 2023, by 2030, we are supposed to be 50%. I think everybody in this room understands that we're not going to be able to build all those things that fast. So we have some wiggle room here. So right now we're at 26%. Those energy produces RECs. we're required to retire 15% of our energy via RECs. We're saving that other 11% so that we can be compliant in future years. So what does that mean? That's probably gonna give me another 5 years to try to get up to that 50%. So it gives us more flexibility. So thinking through it now gives us that flexibility later. We already talked about the energy waste reduction program. I kind of hit on that already. We don't need to go on that. One thing we do offer our customers that's out there, and I believe some of the room have already taken advantage of it, we do have a green energy rider. So if you would like to be more than the 26 or 30% green energy, you can go and sign up, and we will buy those RECs for you and retire them on your behalf. So it's a chance, if you're into this, you can participate, put your money where your mouth is, so to speak, and up your green percentage. Other things we're working on. Community solar garden. I've got some more slides on that, so I'm gonna kind of skip over that for right now. Resource adequacy. Sustainability is not just being green. I think sometimes the term gets that, it's about being sustainable, making sure we're reliable, you know, all these things. Long-term planning and sustainability. Resource adequacy, fancy way of saying, make sure we have enough generation, make sure we have enough transmission. With everything going around in the county, with Campbell 3, I think everybody knows what I'm talking about. How do we meet our future needs? So we're looking at that at the Board of Light and Power. It's kind of an all across the board options here. There's things from what can we do locally, what can we do regionally, and what can we do statewide? And all those values change, right? If we're looking at something like Campbell 3, to give you an idea, that was 1,500 megawatts. Grand Haven's, our system's peak load, not just Grand Haven, but the surrounding area, our peak load is 65 megawatts. Can we afford to build a 1,500 megawatt plant by ourselves? Obviously, the answer is no. So if we want to look at a resource like that, we definitely have to partner with lots of people, right, and take a small percentage of a plant like that. If we want to do something here locally, that number has to come down, so it's something, once again, keeping that diversified power supply portfolio. So it's going to be an all the above thing, right? We're going to do energy efficiency. We're going to be looking at, you know, can we build something locally, a community solar garden? Can we build something regionally, maybe partner with other utilities in our area, like the Zeelands and the Hollands of the area, and say, hey, maybe we can build something where we all three of us share it. Once again, spreading that risk out. So I did skip over on the affordability slide. I did give you guys a copy of this. So I'm going to give a little plug to MMEA, the Michigan Municipal Electric Association. So there's 40 electric municipalities in the state of Michigan. And this is one of our joint groups, kind of our lobbying group. They commissioned a study. I think you guys are familiar with UFS, Utility Financial Systems. We use them for our rate studies. I know others have as well. So they did this study for us. And of the 40 municipals in the state of Michigan, in 2023, we saved over $402 million for our customers. So that's all of us together, but $402 million, Public Power Works. So I gave you a report here, and that's based upon two things. Reliability, because as you know, you have an outage, you're down, especially if you're a business. If we take our business customer Shape, they're out of power, they're not making bumpers. So maybe at your home it's a bit of an annoyance, but if you're a business, that's real dollars, right? So reliability, that's a big one. And then just our rates. We talked about affordability. Us being 30% cheaper, that adds up. So some of the other numbers that are in here, if you just thumb through it, is, you know, if you're looking at the average Michigan Power customer, they'll save $100,000 in their lifetime. A resident just living here by getting the benefit of having more reliable power, local control, and better rates. And it makes my job easy to go out and sing our praises, right? We got great people, we got great guys, we got everybody that's doing all great jobs there. And we have numbers to prove it. So I encourage you to read through this at your leisure. If you have questions, feel free to reach out. There is a little QR code on the back that will take you to a website and give you some more information on that. So back to the regularly scheduled program. So one of the things I wanted to talk to you guys about is a community solar project. So we are working in the Board of Light and Power at all our options, right? And one of the things we've heard, we actually did a customer survey, and there is about 50% of our customers say they'd be somewhat interested in a community solar project. Now, it depends on how much money we're talking about. That, as you can imagine, the more money you want to spend, the people wanting to participate gets a lot lower. But I think it's worthwhile. We need to have this conversation. So what we're looking at as staff, we're going to be talking about it with our board as well. But one of the things that the biggest ticket item there you see is we need to identify sites. The Board of Light and Power, all our property we own is developed. So where can we put this asset for the community? So with that, I've got some ideas, but I think that's one of the things that we really need to talk about. And really, we'd like to be in the city of Grand Haven, right? It's a community asset. It should be, hopefully, placed inside our community. So Grand Haven has some challenges. We all know that we're a very developed community. There's not a lot of spare parcels. So good and bad there, right? One, not a lot of options. That's a bad side. The good news is not a lot to look at. So the city has some property. We'll get into that the next slide that we might want to talk about in the future. One of the things we're currently looking through is reviewing the funding sources with the change in administration. It seems to change every week. What grants, what tax rebates, et cetera, are available out there. It looks like we're basically down to somewhere around a 30% tax rebate. Actually had one I was going to bring to you guys here that they had a Solar for All grant program. They canceled it. It was $7 billion from the federal government. It's been canceled. It's gone. So that's off the table. So we need to look at our funding sources. And of course, that rolls right into project feasibility, right? We can't do something just because it seems like a good idea at the time. We need to walk through everything. Do the economics make sense? Are the customers willing to participate? Because I guess I'll back up. The idea of a community solar is the Board of Light and Power would build it. We would sell the panels to people that wanted to participate. And then with whatever that energy those panels made for that month, they would get credited back on their bill. Think of it as kind of like pre-buying or locking in a price for energy long-term. So we need to go through all of those things. So you'll be hearing, this is really what I'm trying to get at today is we're looking at this stuff, we're talking about this stuff, but once again, my big item is I don't have any property. So I want to get kind of consensus from my board and from city council if this is something that we're interested in, if the locations seem to make sense, and just generally get a thumbs up or a thumbs down of are we going in the right path. So if you look at the picture in the background there, the orange, yellow circle there, that is the glide path by the airport property. That's kind of what that would look like from a satellite view. And the smaller picture is what a standard design looks like for ground mounted panels to kind of give you an idea of what we're talking about here. So that's the panels shown there, that's a 750 kW sized array. What we're looking at with that property I was talking about, here's a zoomed out picture with me highlighting it, is the glide path to the airport. So once again, I go back to, we don't have a lot of spare space in the city. This may be an opportunity for us to kill two birds with one stone. Once again, they're short ground mounted panels. We don't believe there's going to be a problem with height. They're going to be south facing. I don't believe there's going to be a problem with glare. Obviously, all those boxes have to be checked. We're at very high level concept phase here, so I want to make sure I'm very clear to everybody here. This is not a foregone solution. I am asking, do you like the concept? Because once again, if I'm going out and looking at things and discovering these things, it's your property. You guys speak for the residents here, right? It's their property. Is this a use you guys would like to see done out on that property? That's kind of my question for you guys here, and we'll get to that in a minute. But the idea is we could use this area here that's kind of encumbered already for the glide path. Once again, how does that look? How does the project feasibility come out? What are the economics? All that we can figure out later. It's a high level. So with that, I want to pause and kind of get your feedback. Is this something that you guys would be interested in us continuing to look at?
Rob, do you need FAA approval for this?
We would have to get it eventually, yes. A permit, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like the ground mounted panels should be lower than the trucks that are going down the road closer to
Yeah,
it.
right.
So
No,
it shouldn't be
yeah.
an issue.
But
We
they
also
all-
have to do a glare study as part of that process.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, glare had been talked about at all.
Yep. Yeah, like I said, once again, I've talked to other developers. To give you an idea, the amount of investment we'd be talking about just to build that site without full project cost, just the purchase of the panels and installing the panels. Obviously, we still have to hook it up to the grid and all that kind of stuff for ourselves. That's about a $2 million project.
I think it's a great idea.
So, yeah, and like I said, for the property, we'd have to work out how we're gonna do that, whether it's a lease agreement, the BLP buys it, all those other types of things that we'd come down that path, but I appreciate the feedback, Kevin.
I think it's a great idea.
Now, Rob, you told me separately that you had good access to at least three of the BLP circuits.
Yes.
So a substation wouldn't necessarily be built, but you have a way of feeding your power into the local grid.
Yeah, so 750 kW, to give you an idea, that is the size of the transformer be set would be similar to something smaller than the transformer that's at Walmart, to give you an example. A little bit larger than the transformer to feed this building. So it would be a standard style, I'll say an industrial or a large service hookup. On the west side of that, so the city owns kind of an L-shaped piece of property there. On the west side of that property, we have 2 distribution circuits that go down and feed the industrial park. And on the north side, along Comstock, we have a different circuit that comes along there and also feeds out Comstock. So I have 3 ways to get that power out of that site. So to be honest with you, that makes a great location for us for other things too. I mean, I think everyone here already understands that we currently are using Harbor Island for like a laydown yard. So when we do our projects, we can't fit all those poles in our pole bunks on our site on Eaton Drive. We can't necessarily put all the equipment we need. So we've currently been using, for years, Harbor Island as a auxiliary site. Well, when remediation actions pick up and all those other things, I can't be doing that anymore, right? Long-term, looking into it, 5 years down the road, what's that look like? Is that gonna be a park? Is it gonna be something else developed? I'm gonna lose that property. So I'm looking at this as a win-win. Maybe I can get this for solar, maybe I can build a laydown yard there, kill a lot of birds with one stone, with a pretty much encumbered piece of property, and I feel it's a win for everybody involved because the public is going from one public entity to another public entity. It's kind of encumbered property already, so we can, once again, kill the 2 birds with one stone. And then I also get the ability to be able to solve some of the other problems we've been talking about ever since the project on Harbor Island got canceled. I mean, we were gonna do more things on that site, and we're not doing it there. Harbor Island's not being done, that's fine, but now we still do have some of those needs. So, like I said, that's my sales pitch.
Rob, I think it's a good idea, but I think we should probably bring it to our airport board and see what their, have them weigh in a little bit. I know the final decision is going to be ours, but I'd like to have some kind of input from them before we move forward with it.
Yep.
But I think it's a really good idea, a good plan. But I don't know what their future, what they have going out there at the airport board. And so it'd be nice to get them in the loop and make sure that they're all on board also.
And I agree with that. Like I said, I want to be very clear that right now, this is just a very high-level concept of, as you know, grant funding and stuff changes very quickly.
Very fast.
And I don't want to be the guy that's going out and applying for a grant without have the owners telling me, yes. I don't want to be in that position. So once we do that, we want to apply for a grant, then yes, that's going to kick off that permitting process of the FAA, talking with the airport board, doing the other studies and all those other things that go along with it.
Very good.
I also think it's a great idea, and I really appreciate you thinking strategically about this and bringing something like that to us. I think it certainly sounds like it's worth exploring. I share Councilmember Fritz's desire that the airport board get plugged into this and understand, and they have an opportunity to provide some input. But at the end of the day, the property belongs to the city of Grand Haven, and we'll have to make the decision on what's in the best, in best interest going forward. But I think it's a great idea to pursue.
Thanks.
Yeah, your opportunities are slim, as you already noted. And going back to Harbor Island, because we've talked about what can be done on Harbor Island, what are the future uses there. Whatever the uses are, they're out in the future by years, because there's no place on Harbor Island at this point in time that we can say is not going to get disturbed with remediation, possibly to the extent of removing a lot of material. So I'd hate to put something there and then immediately have to tear it out.
Yeah. You don't want to put
relocate
a
it.
20 to 30-year asset on top of a 5-year plan.
So, I mean, that's our hesitation with Harbor Island. It has been for some time, because that's not a bad site either if you knew what the next couple of years were going to bring. But this is something that's more readily attainable in the time frame we're talking about.
Yeah, I think, as you've heard from others, it's important to note that right now we're kind of looking at the tax rebates, and they expire if we're not done with this by the end of next year. So it is going to have to be, if this is something we want to do, something we have to look at, talk about, work through the details probably quicker than we're used to making decisions if we want to get it done, but I have faith we can get it done. But it's just going to have to be something that we need to keep that in the back of our mind, that's why I'm pre-selling it, so to speak. Hey, is this something we want to do? Because it's something we're going to have to do some homework on. And like I said, it's not a foregone conclusion because without some of those grants and subsidies, I'll be honest with you, solar, if you're asking me if this is a financially best solution for our power supply, it's not. But there's other reasons you do projects, right? And this gives the people that want to be able to do some of these things the opportunity to do it. If you're a renter, you don't have roof space to build something. If you're a business owner, then you have sustainability goals. Maybe you don't have the ability to put it on your roof. So it gives an opportunity for the community to get involved and buy into something that they maybe want to do on their own, but they just don't have the means to get it done, so.
And you talk about the need for the grants and the federal help to make these things feasible, and that's something that's very concerning to me is we've seen a number of things get canceled or clawed back, and I don't want to take on a commitment and then have it rug pulled out from under us. I do appreciate, for example, Mr. Hagan has given us a strong sense of urgency to do something with this. I think this is probably more attainable within the time and constraints that we have than some of the other things we might pursue if those constraints didn't exist. For example, the Harbor Island remediation. So I think this is an opportunity that's within our grasp.
Yeah, I agree. That's why I wanted to bring it here. And like I said, we'll be discussing this at our board meeting on Thursday to kind of get the same kind of consensus with our board. And then staff and I will get to work.
Okay, thanks.
Next slide. So what are we doing outside of the community solar project in 2025? So you've probably seen some orange barrels around. We did a rebuild on West Spring Lake Road out there by the old party store. Replacing aged equipment. Once again, Harbor Drive Underground. It's about ready to start kicking back off. So in the next month or so, once kids are back in school and some of the tourists leave, we'll be able to get back down on Harbor Drive. So that should be wrapped up before spring of next year. So we'll get all those poles and everything out of there, which I'm pretty excited about. Working on Beech Tree right now. If you've been over on the east side, you'll see that we are completely rebuilding Beech Tree from Rainy Day Cafe down to Robbins Road. That's really being done to be able to give us more ability to tie our circuits together for reliability purposes. Robbins and Wisconsin rebuild, so also known as our hospital circuit. So we're hardening that circuit coming up there with also next year moving into next one down Grand Avenue. So I will also be able to tie two substations and two circuits together, once again for reliability purposes. And you're gonna hear about from Derek here in a little bit, we're working on the courtyard cleanup. So Harbor Island's moving forward. Looking forward to 2026. Also in 2025, we're still in the middle of our building remodel, so hoping to have that open. So I'm going to give a little plug here. We're working, trying to get our building able to be shown for a public power week, which is the first week of October. So hopefully we can have an open house or something along those lines. Stay tuned for more information. Next year, Grand Avenue, we're going to rebuild that. The area around Beech Tree, Waverly, kind of that north of Waverly, east of Beech Tree area town needs to be rebuilt. It's pretty old, needs to be redone. We're going to be working on that. Circuits 21 and 22, that's a 2-year project. We're going to start there. That's kind of started at the YMCA and then working all our way over to Ruddy Rental, replacing those two circuits. So with that, I think everybody has our contact information. I would entertain any questions. I know we've had a long meeting. I'm trying to go through as fast as I can, so I apologize for taking a little more time.
Thanks, Rob. Questions for Rob?
Rob, thank you very much for this. You guys do a great job.
Thank you.
I mean, it's, when you come to reliability, everybody else around you is down for days and we're down for hours if something happens, so.
Yeah, we got a lot of great people that work.
Yeah,
here.
you do, and I just want to congratulate you for that.
Thank you.
I'll echo that. I'll tell you what, I've known for all my life, I've lived here, so the reliability is number one here. I tell you, it's been fantastic. We had such a great crew and everything. I loved your presentation tonight. Thank you so very much. And tell everybody back at the station that we're doing good. Glad to see us all back and working together again.
Thanks, sir.
Yeah, I just want to say that thank you for all the strategic thinking. Thanks for the update here. This is exactly what the city of Grand Haven and any municipality actually needs is to know that those of us who voted for a board and for this public utility that you are doing strategically what you're supposed to be doing and moving forward on the things so that we don't have to worry about that. And this just gives me a great sense of, okay, you heard us, you're moving forward, and things are in good hands. So, thank you.
And I appreciate how complex the electrical business is. I was an engineer, I was a plant engineer. I had to deal with it as a customer, but also as balancing all the loads within an industrial facility. And so I get a little bit of that in my experience, and then I've come to appreciate a lot more from working with BOP, and the leadership there I think is outstanding, and the workers are outstanding, and you have the community in your heart, and I think that's really important too. So you're dedicated to us and to dealing with the complexities of a modern electrical system. It's not an easy job, but I appreciate all the thinking you're doing here and your dedication to the community.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. All right. Well, that'll bring us to our consent agenda. Marie, would you please read that?
Item A, approve the regular council meeting minutes for August 4, 2025. Item B, approve the bills memo in the amount of $2,739,258.34. Item C, approve a resolution to appoint Taylor Carlin as officer delegate, Michael England as officer alternate, and Annie Cannon as employee delegate to the 2025 MERS Annual Conference. Item D, approve a resolution to award the contract authorizing Task Order 22, Task 32, CCR Data Collection Work Plan to HDR of Ann Arbor, Michigan, in the not-to-exceed budgeted amount of $263,570, contingent upon approval by the Board of Light and Power. Item E, approve a resolution to award the contract authorizing Task Order 23, Task 33, PFAS Data Collection Work Plan to HDR of Ann Arbor, Michigan, in the not-to-exceed budgeted amount of $169,090. And item F, approve a resolution to approve change order number 5 to TL Contracting for the coal removal project in the not-to-exceed budgeted amount of $108,040.40, contingent upon approval by the Board of Light and Power.
Can I get a motion?
So moved. Support.
Motion by Fritz, second by McLaughlin. Are there any questions on any of these items?
No, this is explained before, so.
Yep. All right, well then, you please call the roll.
Fritz?
Yes.
McLaughlin?
Yes.
Lowe?
Yes.
Manetza?
Yes. So we have one item of unfinished business.
Item A, consideration by City Council of a final resolution to amend the zoning ordinance to permit short-term rentals by special land use in the Centertown overlay of the neighborhood mixed-use district. Planning Commission recommends approval, administration recommends approval.
Can I get a motion?
So move.
And second.
Motion by McLaughlin, second by Fritz. Now, this is our second reading of this, and we made an amendment at our first reading. Has anything changed since our first reading?
No.
Okay. Any questions on the part of council?
I just want to make sure at the end of the day that we have retail and commercial facing 7th and Washington Street, because it's very detrimental for that area to have more businesses down there and make it, for them. I want to make sure that they're what they need down there. I've talked to a few of the business owners down there. They just want to make sure that at the end of the day, that they have that on the lower level facing those two streets.
Okay. Now, I know Brian had given us an opinion on interpreting the ordinance. Would you like Brian to clarify that?
It'd be nice if you come up and let people know, make sure that that's all going to happen for them.
Yeah, Brian Urquhart, city planner. Sorry I wasn't here 2 weeks ago, but yes, to clarify, in the Centertown overlay, for this amendment, it's required to have on the ground floor, a prerequisite to be usable floor area to be retail or commercial. You wouldn't qualify it any other way to not have if it's parking or residential, that wouldn't work. So that the special land use kind of dictates what's on the ground floor, what's allowed to be on the upper floors. So again, it's kind of like you're looking at the existing pattern of development in the Centertown overlay. It's kind of in a compact, urban form, dense, not exactly like downtown, but very similar. And that's what this ordinance amendments will achieve with this amendment, that you would get those types of uses of usable floor area having that. And furthermore, I know there was some concern about parking. In the, over on the underlying zoning district, neighborhood mixed use, new parking facilities must be located in the rear of the property or of the building. So the building itself, the orientation, the framework of the ordinance is already in place. This just kind of enhances that and will pretty much guarantee, actually will guarantee that the ground floor retail, commercial uses will be there. And if they want to be able to achieve a residential above and short-term rental.
So if you had a building, somebody could somebody build commercial on the face and have inside parking behind it?
Yes.
Okay. That's all I care about.
That's all, you're right, you're absolutely right.
Mike, is that,
That answers
are you
my question.
satisfied?
Yes.
Okay. Karen?
Questions?
No, I have no further questions either. I appreciate all the work that went into this by all the different parties, and I think that we are going to move forward with a larger center town study to work through issues and possibly create opportunities all down that corridor. But I understand that it's one thing at a time here. Okay, thank you.
As I explained to Mr. Wilson, I probably didn't agree with everything that went on with this whole process, but we're just too far down the road. And I can't legitimately say no after all the, everything that's gone on up to this point. But I think if I had to do it over again, it'd be handled differently. Okay.
Totally.
Okay. Would you please call the roll?
McLaughlin,
Yes.
Fritz,
Yes.
Lowe,
Yes.
Manetza.
Yes. Thank you. All right, now, we have two public hearings this evening. They're basically the same project, but it has to be handled as two separate hearings. So I'm going to open a public hearing regarding a resolution to approve and adopt a brownfield plan for the 2024 Washington project located at 2024 Washington Avenue for a period of 20 years. So, Dana, would you like to describe this to us?
Yes, good evening, council. So we're excited to bring forward redevelopment of 224 Washington, which is what most of us in town call the Grand Haven Jewelry Building. So that should probably prompt for people a good sense of where that is and what's been going on down at that particular parcel for a number of years. So we have a request by the developer to consider a housing TIF, and the project itself will include commercial on the ground floor and then 7 residential units, with 3 of those being considered attainable. And attainability by the state's definition might be a little bit different than what some people might think, but it's 80% to 120% of area median income. So those that are within that bracket would fit into that particular rent calculation. And if it were to be market rate, there is a gap between the attainable rate and the market rate. That's calculated, and through a MSHA calculator, it's the State Housing Development Authority, which provides a rent loss calculator, essentially. So the development itself is eligible for a larger amount of just over $726,000 in housing TIF or housing capture. But they are requesting $202,900 in reimbursement for 15 years with 5 years of local capture for the Brownfield Revolving Loan Fund. The development team is also going to be seeking an Obsolete Property Rehabilitation Act tax abatement and grant funding through the state of Michigan. And we did have, as a part of the review process, a third-party reviewer that looked at all of the comparables for the residential, the commercial, as well as the assumptions that were going into the project, looked at a conservative view and a more aggressive review of that, and found that the assumptions and the project itself would not be possible without these incentives applied to the project. So based on the information that was provided and the discussion that we had at the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, they are recommending approval of the brownfield plan and that TIF plan. Tonight is not taking action, but just the public hearing. We do have the attorney representing the development team here this evening if council has any question or if they would like to add anything to what I shared.
Okay. Do you have something to add now, or would you rather wait for us to ask questions? Well, okay, because we're in a public hearing here. Usually we start a public hearing with an explanation or presentation of the project and then give the applicant an opportunity to speak and then take comments from the public.
Thank you. Jared Belka with Warner Norcross, 150 Ottawa, Grand Rapids. Appreciate the opportunity. I will be available to answer questions. Just wanted to say we appreciate your consideration of this request. The building's been vacant for quite a long time. Kyle attempted to move forward with the project, and obviously COVID hit and the cost went up exponentially. Interest rates are much higher than what we were previously dealing with. So it's tools like this that we need to turn to in order to make a project like this make sense. So again, I'm available for any questions. I know that Dana did a great job of giving the project intro, so appreciate your
All right,
consideration.
thank you. So would anyone like to come to the podium and address council on this, in this public hearing on this item? This is the public comment on the Brownfield TIF plan, which is actually a housing TIF plan.
Good evening, Jim Hagan, 400 Lake. This may be tangential, and I sent out this email to council and city administration this morning, but in the whole packet, I didn't see anything that really explained how the parking, where it was coming from, and the documentation and so forth on it. I think we really, as we start doing these kind of projects and start assigning public parking to them, we have to have within our packets information on where they're going to come from. Just like when we look at the overnight parking behind the 200 block, obviously we don't have the whole 200 block available. We have about 60% of that is available for parking, and only a certain amount is designated as overnight parking. Then on Franklin, we have the lot, and only a certain amount is designated as overnight parking. What I'd like to see is actually numbers on how much of that overnight parking is being utilized. Do we have room for this project? Do we have room for 2 more projects, 4 more projects? I mean, we need to start tracking this and recording it. It should be part of the public record. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Anyone else? If no one else would like to address council in this public hearing, I'm going to close this public hearing. I know we're not taking action tonight, but if council would have questions or comments at this point, let's talk.
My only comment, oh, I'm sorry, John.
Go.
No,
Oh, well, I have some naive questions, so maybe you'll answer them and.
no, probably not. I'm only concerned about $202,900 coming from the state of Michigan. If that doesn't happen, is there an alternative that we can work through? I mean, this is I think this is a very important project for downtown. And I don't have any faith in, with all due respect to the state of Michigan, on getting the 202, considering all the other projects that are happening here in Grand Haven. What would happen? Yeah, absolutely.
So it's a great question. The TIF requested for you, it's all based on tax increment financing.
Right.
So, the developer makes an investment, their property tax bill goes up, a
Yeah.
portion of that is captured and reimbursed.
Yeah.
So from that standpoint, the developer completes the project, that increment is going to be there.
Right.
The housing TIF, Michigan has been very supportive of projects. They're very deferential to the local communities.
Mhm.
If a project is supported through council, they've essentially said, we see no reason to say no. So we are confident about that piece if that is awarded. Same goes for the property tax abatement that's requested. Those are all kind of locally driven.
Yeah.
We are seeking a grant request from the MEDC as well. We've been engaged with them. We've had a few rounds of feedback, and we'll be following back up with them. And our goal is to get an LOI from them within the coming weeks.
Okay.
There's obviously lots of outside impact that, can delay the timing on that piece, but we've been closely engaged with them and are working towards that goal.
If the 202 is unable to come to the development, would the developer come back to us and ask for a more generous TIF?
I mean, anything could be on the table. I mean, we're asking for what the developer's making the commitment to with the term of attainability. And quite frankly, the project itself, given the property tax abatement, can only generate so much TIF.
Right.
Which, I mentioned the grant that we're working towards.
Right.
All those are critical components to be able to pull this thing together.
Okay. We didn't see the pro forma, so I wasn't.
Yeah,
We only saw an executive summary. I didn't see the actual pro formas.
Yep, I can appreciate that. We did share all of the pro forma and project materials with the third-party reviewer, Plant Moran. I think staff has been shared that as well.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Kevin, we will have that in the packet for the action that you'll be taking.
Okay, thank you.
By us going forward with this would actually give you a better chance of getting that grant, by us having the city buy in, saying, yes, we support this project. So I'm pretty well supportive of it and moving forward with it, because like Kevin says, we need to have something down there to move forward with it.
Thank you. Yes, it does help apply some pressure for some movement, so.
Yeah, by the city of Grand Haven, if we support this tonight, by doing that, it gives the state knows that we are very serious about this project, and that makes it helpful for you to get your grant and also all the other things that goes along with it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Karen?
Yeah, I don't know that I have questions for you. I really have questions for my very smart fellow council members here, so.
I'm available
yeah,
right here if you do.
Yeah. I'm gonna ask the naive questions, partly because I really don't understand this, and I think some of the people at home also don't understand this. We look at this and we're gonna use brownfield and obsolete property, and this is on our main street, right across from where we're going to be putting a hotel, or we hope to be putting a hotel. And I don't know, like where I come from, it's kind of like, well, if it's vacant and hasn't been rented, maybe the rent is too high. Or if the property's been valued. And so anyway, I'm kind of trying to think, how did we get here? And how does that justify on our main street as an obsolete property or one that's brownfield?
I think we need to see the numbers. We don't, until we see the real numbers, I mean, you know how I felt on the diesel plant. And I saw the numbers on that, and I had no problem asking the questions of both the developer and staff. I think once you see the pro formas come back that the third party has verified, that we'd have a better understanding of why they need this. That's how I'm gonna make my decision.
Why they need it?
Why the developer needs it, why the subsidy is gonna be required to make the deal work.
So whoever owns it right now?
Yes.
So, again, like if I was a property owner, I own, like if I can't build the house that I want to and I need a brownfield or a TIF, can I apply for that? You know what I mean? It just seems odd to me that this is right on our main street on the and it's, I don't know, I'm just, to call that a blighted property or a property that requires cleanup, and it's right on our second block, it just doesn't make sense to, logically, it doesn't make sense to me. You can pick a lot of other properties. So I know I don't understand all of this detail as much as you three, but I'm just saying that some of my constituents have these questions about why we would be doing this.
To some degree, the condition of the building speaks to that too. It's not habitable or usable as is, without extensive investment. In fact, it's probably, I hate to use the C word, but it's probably something you would consider condemning if it doesn't get improved. It's not in good condition, but it could be saved. But as it stands now, it's an obsolete property because it's not usable. That's not to say it can't come back, and the fact that it's on Washington is it's the worst place you can have a building like that. So I think that's why you would want to see this investment in it to bring it back. But as far as, you know,
I mean, Karen, are you getting to the point that, you know, you have a building downtown, the owner could have sold it 3 years ago? Was the price too high?
Exactly. This is my point.
That-
My
that
point
could
is that
absolutely be true.
whether.
I'm not arguing that point with you at all.
Any of that, and all of a sudden now it's anyway, that's my point. It's a little bit confusing because this is not just a piece of property in an undeveloped area that where the city, everybody all agrees. This is right in our downtown, and that property will be a lot more valuable should we put a hotel across the, street,
sure will.
commercially or otherwise. So my point being is, I look at this and I'm just a little, confused. And I know I'm not the only one because I have constituents that are a little confused. I can't explain it, so I was hoping you all could.
Well, honestly, there's no question that this could have been sold 3-4 years ago. What the number was, we don't know what the real number was and what the real market value was at that time because it just wasn't provided to us. I guess it's a leap of faith, Karen, that if you wanna get a building that's been sitting there vacant for some time, I mean, okay, we are deferring taxes, and I'm not gonna argue that one with you. But do we want it to sit there across from, it could very sit there for another 3 years across from a hotel that looks pretty damn good, so. I'd give it, I wanna see the numbers, and then I'll, I may agree with you.
No, that's fair. No,
Yeah.
I'm just asking the question. I didn't say that's, I was
know.
just
I know
wanting
those
to
constituents are
understand,
yours.
yeah.
Well, the other piece of this too, the reason it's a housing brownfield is that every TIF has to address specific eligible costs. You can't just say, I want a bunch of money. It's got to be, I need money because I have to do this, this, and this. The classic brownfield usually involves environmental cleanup or removal of obsolete materials or something like that. Their eligible costs are basically two things. One is preparing the plan, which is like a $30,000 engineering fee. But the other one is, as listed here, was up to almost $700,000 of basically potential rent loss because it's
Attainable.
it's an attainable, it's supposed to, so they're not really asking for
Which
money
isn't
to fix
needed.
the building, they're asking for money to make this housing available. And that's the piece that's coming with this brownfield TIF.
Right.
Now, there's also another request for our next public hearing, which is obsolete property rehabilitation, which is the other part of your concern. And that's not really these eligible costs, but it's a different process. But
Right,
all these things are intended to address specific costs,
right.
and they all have an endpoint in time.
And I do see within the brownfield on the attainable housing piece, the number of units, but that presumes yeah. Okay,
Anything else?
all right, nope, that was
No,
just
they're
my.
good questions,
my-
excellent questions. Anything else?
No.
I don't know if Dana, if you wanted to address any of this at this point, but right now we're just kind of talking among ourselves to establish.
We're not voting,
how
I
we
was
feel.
just throwing that out there as.
Because
right,
there's no agenda item tonight to vote on.
Correct, and that, just to remind everybody, after you adopted your economic incentive policy, that included in there that there was no action in the same meeting as a public hearing, so it'll be back before your next meeting. But yes, I'm glad, Mayor, that you touched on the qualifications and what the eligible activities were for the housing TIF, that it really was to meet an attainability goal that the city has also communicated out that we'd like to see more attainable and a mix of housing types in our community, including the downtown. So that was addressing some of that particular desire. And I was going to speak to the functional obsolescence under the intro to the next public hearing.
Okay.
What happens if you wipe out the attainability? What happens? What happens if it's all market rate?
Plant Moran didn't run that analysis when they did it. They did look at different rent rates. I don't know if you
Would
guys
that make up
looked
the
at that.
202 if you lose it?
No. So the developer is targeting this kind of missing middle component for the units. The commitment in terms of income qualifying the households we have 3 units in there.
Right.
We didn't want to restrict all the units because
Wouldn't
obviously
work.
if you had somebody who exceeded that, you wouldn't want to turn them away. You'd
Right.
want to rent them to that. So the commitment is for the 3 units. In terms of the target rent range, there's not a big gap between
Okay.
the two.
You'll see that in the numbers too, Kevin, in the pro forma.
Okay, thank you.
Well, at this point, it's a little redundant, but I'm required to have a second public hearing for the obsolete property rehabilitation district, and we can speak to that afterwards as well. But I think we've had the prefatory material already spoken to, so I'm going to go straight to, would anybody from the public like to address council on this topic? This would be for obsolete property rehabilitation abatement, which is different from a TIF in that with a TIF, you collect taxes and turn them back to cover eligible costs. With an obsolete property, you basically don't collect tax for a period of time. I believe it's 12 years in this plan. And that support can be used for other activities not specified in these eligible costs. So, anyone from the public would like to address council? Okay, and you can correct everything that I said wrong.
No, you were spot on. I just wanted to address, in the materials that were provided, and I think Dana speaks to this, there is a letter of functional obsolescence provided by the city assessor back from 2021. The building's been long-standing vacant. I went through it a few weeks ago, didn't go in the basement. I made that mistake one time, and I don't go in basements anymore. Yeah, the building is in very rough shape, and I can appreciate the comments made about the concern, but it's tools like these. There's risk. There's risk involved for everyone. There can be inaction, and maybe nothing moves forward. But keeping in mind, the developers are signing personal guarantees for loan amounts and everything. So they're putting a lot at risk. They're looking to offset some of that and looking to make a calculated decision, which I think you guys will see when you see the numbers. I think even in the Plant Moran report, it mentions maybe borderline philanthropic. They're just tough to pencil. So that's why we're here. If it was easy enough to go out there and start swinging hammers, that would have been done a long time ago because it's not making any money right now. So, thank you.
Right, thanks. Would anyone care to address council on this public hearing? If not, I'm going to close this public hearing. I would invite council to make further comment on the obsolete property portion of this.
No,
Okay.
I'm good. You good?
I think we've discussed it quite a bit. But the obsolete property is a different animal than the TIF.
If you've been inside the building, like I have been in my lifetime down there, you know that it's pretty much obsolete.
Well,
It
like I
needs a
say,
lot of work.
And being obsolete doesn't mean it can't be saved.
It can be
means that
fixed.
As it stands, it can't be used.
Yeah, you can't do nothing with it right now.
Okay. So if there's no further comment from council, I think we'll move on. All right. Thank you for your input. And that concludes our public hearings for the evening. So it brings us to our first item of new business. Would you please read that?
Item A, consideration by City Council of a resolution to amend and update the Board of Light and Power's purchasing policy pursuant to Section 14.4 of the Grand Haven City Charter. The Board of Light and Power recommends approval, administration recommends approval.
Can I get a motion on this?
So moved?
Second?
Motion by Fritz, second by Lowe. Rob, you're up here. Would you like to give us a brief rundown of what you're asking for?
Sure. I did include, our city did include a memo from me on this. So we have been going through over the last year or so, all of our policies and procedures and just kind of doing some housekeeping. One of them that came up to the surface really quickly was our purchasing policy. Our old purchasing policy, the procedure of it has been updated throughout time, but our dollar limits have not been. The last time they were approved were 1992. So you can imagine they're a little outdated. So we decided as we're going through this, if you read the city charter, it kind of delineates where the authority lies. So the board has the ability to set the procedures and the dollar values, but they must be approved by city council. So we decided, well, you have two different really authorities here, let's set them into two different policies. So we have a purchasing policy that sets up all of our procedures, and then we have a purchasing authority policy, which is what's before you today or attached, that sets the dollar value so that we can kind of update them as needed independently of each other, because one needs to go to city council for approval, one just needs to go to our board for approval. So with that backdrop, what we've done is we've worked with the city and kind of gotten, kind of how they're doing business and kind of modeled our dollar limits, et cetera, after that. So it's just trying to take it from 1992 dollar values up to, I wouldn't even say $20, $25 values. It's still, I think, a little low, truthfully, but it matches the other departments of the city. So just at least getting us caught up with that. Currently, as a general manager, I am allowed to spend $5,000 without getting board approval. With that perspective, I cannot put tires on one of my trucks without writing a PO and taking it to a board meeting. I can't buy a transformer without taking it to a board meeting. Things we need to do on a daily basis. So this will at least get us caught up with the rest of the city.
Okay, thanks. Questions?
Sure. Is the old policy allows a department head and the board chairperson to approve a purchase without your approval? Is that the old policy, and you're just updating the amount, or is this brand new?
So let me rephrase it. So they're allowed to, like, our department heads are at $500 right now.
Okay.
So we're asking to bump that. I think it's $2,500, if I remember correctly
Yes,
off the top of my head. And the board chair is at, I think, $500 as well.
Okay.
So all that stuff will be reviewed by purchasing and all that other stuff. It's not that it's just, they could do whatever the heck they want. They have to turn in the receipts and it has to be gone
Right.
through and checks and
It's
balances.
it's
Yep.
kind of interesting. That'd be like giving Bob, the authority to spend $2,500.
I can't spend $25.
I know. That's my only question is.
Good question.
I can see a department head's gonna come to you. You're not gonna let him do it, or he won't be a department head much longer. But the board chairperson could very well just spend money and without anybody's approval. I don't know. Maybe that'd be like Bob, and I would have a question about that.
Well,
But that's just me.
I'm going to weigh in here. I don't have any problem with this at all. I feel like the people of Grand Haven elected a board to oversee all of these things. And I think the fact that our charter requires you to come here, thank you for coming here. But I trust that the board is going to complete their fiduciary responsibility and oversight. It seems reasonable to me, so I'm voting yes.
Don't worry, Len keeps a sharp pencil.
It's about time you get up to date.
Thank you.
We went through that. I remember when Pat McGinnis come to us, he says, I can't even buy a pump, If an emergency came up, he had to come to us, get a special meeting for us to get together to say, yes, go ahead, but you don't have time for that sometimes, so you need to get your limits up a little higher so you can at least get things done when you need to get them done. So I'm in favor of this 100%. It's about time you guys got up to date.
Thanks.
Yeah, the buying limits were kind of ridiculous. I mean, when I was working, I had a credit card that I could spend $10,000 pretty much at will, and I was a lowly middle manager. And so, I mean, you're running an electric utility. And as far as the dynamics of how your board works and how your chair works compared to how council works, they're somewhat different. You have a different function and a different perspective on that. And so I think it kind of makes sense the way you do business. And obviously, if it got abused, that would be pretty obvious too, but I don't think it will be. I think everybody knows their role, is very responsible about it. You just need to be able to get stuff done.
I don't agree.
Any other questions? Please call the roll.
Fritz?
Yes.
Lowe?
Yes.
McLaughlin?
No.
Manetza?
Yes. Next item, please.
Item B, consideration by City Council of a resolution to approve a bid proposal of $137,240 from Parkway Electric of Holland, Michigan for the materials and labor to replace 3 variable frequency drive units at the Northwest Ottawa Water System, NOWS, Lake Michigan Pump Station. The NOWS Board recommends approval, administration recommends approval.
Can I get a motion?
I'll move.
In support.
Motion by McLaughlin, supported by Fritz. Mr. Law.
Good evening, Council. Eric Law, Water Superintendent for the NOWS system. Tonight, I'm looking for approval from the council to approve a capital plan project. Unfortunately, this project was planned down the road, so we were looking at replacing the last of our aging variable frequency drive units, of which we had 3 in consecutive years, 2026, 27, and 28. So unfortunately, we had a failure that we couldn't plan for. We're right in that sweet spot as far as useful life is concerned, so we thought we would be able to get the total capacity out of these particular units, but they do live in a fairly hostile environment down at the low surface pump station, which is not a non-conditioned space in that open environment. We're looking to contract with Parkway Electric, which is a preferred contractor for us. They've done work on of the total of 9 variable frequency drive units that we have controlling our vertical turbine pumps. 6 of those, as recently as 2 years ago, you might have recalled that we had another failure that happened in our high service pump room. And then the oldest of the newer units that we had, they did in 2018. So this project, I'd like to move forward. I was a bit surprised at the price, pleasantly surprised. They're looking at doing all 3 units for $7,240. And back in 2022, we ended up with 2 units that were replaced for $250,000 at $250,000. So I was a little bit surprised. And if you look at the capital plan that we had, I had actually planned for about $485,000 to replace those over that staggered period of time. So I thought we'd strike while the iron is hot, take advantage of that good pricing.
I think you would.
And at the same time, take care of some critical pieces to our infrastructure so we can go ahead and just round our arsenal of VFD drives so that they're all going to be updated as soon as the 2018, which would be the oldest in our allotment. So, yeah, I think that's about summarizes.
Pretty easy.
Okay, any questions?
No.
No, I think this is prudent and proactive, and it sounds like you got a good price anyway. But yeah, these things don't last forever, and if you wait till they fail and you don't have one, then you're waiting for supply chain.
Yeah, fortunately, with the last failure that we had in 2022, we ended up investing in the soft start unit that currently is operating that failed unit right now, so we still have the capacity. However, if we do have another drive that goes down, that's about 31% of our capacity of bringing source water in from Lake Michigan, so.
Okay. Any other questions?
No.
Please call the roll.
McLaughlin.
Yes.
Fritz.
Yes.
Lowe.
Yes.
Manetza.
Yes. Thank you. Well, that concludes our new business for the evening. So now it brings us to a report by City Council. Who would like to speak first?
I'll go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Okay. Actually, I just wanted to make a few comments. We had a lot of folks at the public comment period talk about deer management and this city council taking action. I was not at the council session, so I'm looking forward to watching that. But first of all, I'd like to say that this council approved in 2023, a forest management plan that included addressing all of the tree diseases that were devastating our canopy, including the oak wilt, devastating oak wilt, the hemlock woolly adelgid, thank you, and the beech bark disease. And we have progressively put money in the budget to address those diseases in our urban forest. That was one element of that forest management plan. There were a couple elements about looking at how we protect certain, some of the trails, trail markers, doing some other things that we have not yet done. But deer management was a component of that. And council unanimously approved that approach. And at that time, it was very clear that if we didn't do deer management, the rest of it would be, good money thrown away. So We also set up the forest management, plan committee, I call it a committee, for the city manager to put together more detailed plans, because this overall forest management plan that we approved, and I think is posted on our website, was general, but had a lot of the issues in there. So we are all very supportive. We're trying to move forward, and we all have also supported when the Forest Management Committee came back, and the Deer Management Group wanted to purchase a drone, correct? To help do all of the studies. So anyway, I guess I'm confused as to why, so many of the public think that we didn't, that city council haven't, done anything. I'm sorry that I missed it tonight, but I also want to apologize to some of my constituents in the public for any perceived lack of transparency regarding the materials for the special council work session. Not only was the presentation materials not posted in the packet, as is customary, they were not sent to city council members either, making it impossible for council members to adequately prepare for that presentation and work session. While I understood that was an oversight, it was not the first time it happened, and in the spirit of transparency, I chose to forego attending the session in person. Once I receive those materials, I'm really looking forward to reviewing them and having the opportunity to also review them, which is my fiduciary responsibility, but also I plan to watch the recording of the work session. Again, I just want to say that my absence shouldn't be construed as being opposed to deer management, but I am in favor of total transparency, and I think it's important that all of us have the opportunity to review materials that are presented here at council, and there shouldn't be any exceptions to that. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen.
I'm good.
You good? Mike?
Oh, I'll step back a little bit to, just want to say thank you for the Walk the Beat. Shutting down Beech Tree is, I tell you what, has been a fantastic thing. I said it last time, I'll say it again. People are very, very happy with that. That's a great thing to happen. And boy, it was hot. Karen, I had a little fan I put around my neck. It does work.
You had a personal fan around your neck.
It worked
I've never seen that
beautiful, I
before.
tell you. And also, I went to Pedro's Pig Roast Saturday, and he had about 400 people there, and he raised a little over $1,500 for the Momentum Center. And it was such a fun time. I mean, he had a live band out there. He had a kids tug-of-war. That's unbelievable, watching these kids play tug-of-war. It was really good. And a big treasure chest for the kids to go on, tie-dye shirts, and it was just community getting together, which is great. I mean, it was such a fun time. I want to thank Pedro for doing that, or Pete Stalzer, but he goes by Pedro. I want to say thank you for putting it together and making it something good for the community and making a donation to the Momentum Center. So, other than that, go Tigers.
No, and you rowed a boat.
Oh, yes. I rowed a boat, and I actually got to steer it. That was even fantastic. I mean, I don't know how they let me do that, but it was kind of crazy.
Well,
I would never let me do it if they say, hey, you can sit up there and steer the boat. All he said was, keep the sun on the starboard side, he says, and careful with the other boat. Don't hit that boat over there.
Well, I went the next day and they wouldn't let anybody else steer, so I don't know if you made the right impression.
But it was, yeah, it was fun, though. It was a great cruise. I want to say the tall ships were here. It was such a fun time, and it was nice to see that a lot of people were out there and enjoyed them. So I want to say, I don't know if staff did anything to bring them here or something, but I tell you what, it was fantastic. I want to say thank you for it. Everybody that's rode on them or we went down and seen them had a great time.
Can I make one comment?
Sure.
Just following up on Mike's Walk the Beat, I really want to congratulate and thank the Walk the Beat committee, because I know how hard it was to control all the people that were out having a good time and going to the individual establishments. I know the year before that, it was a little wilder. I thought they did a wonderful job.
Absolutely.
Making sure that the individual establishments controlled the, how, that the people stayed within within the establishments. They did a great job of that. And I still believe it should be a social district for that day, but I get ruled up on that.
Something we can work on, right?
It should be a social district. It'd be wonderful if it was, you know what I mean? It'd be much more.
It's pretty social, I say, as it is
Huh,
round, but just a little bit more would be better, right?
And we should extend social districts other places, but I'll be gone, so you don't think yes.
Well, I agree, Walk the Beat. Walk the Beat was a great event. I went down there. If the wind hadn't been blowing, we'd have melted ourselves to the asphalt, but yeah, it was hot, but it was a great event. It was well-attended. Everybody did a really nice job out there, and appreciate the vitality that brings to the East End. And we've done a number of things on the East End over the years, and we've had entrepreneurs come in, develop businesses. We've encouraged events and encouraged participation, and it's paying off. This is a vital part of our city, and we're making it better every year. I didn't really have much else to speak to at this point. I do appreciate all the input we got on the deer management issue. We had a good work session, a lot of information presented, a lot of really good, thoughtful public comment. And it was constructive and thoughtful public comment. So thank you for that. And we do listen. So that's all I've got. I'll turn it over to City Manager.
Nothing this evening.
Okay. That brings us to our second call to the audience. At this time, members of the audience may address council on any item, whether on the agenda or not. Those addressing the council are provide their name and address, be limited to 3 minutes of speaking time. We'll hear all comments for future consideration. Will not have a response at this time. And those not physically present may dial 616-935-3203. Would anyone like to address council? No? No? You sure look like you wanted to. All right. Seeing none, I'll close call to the audience. And that brings us to the end of our meeting. So thank you, everyone, for coming.